Welcome to another episode of All Politics So Local, America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. We have a great lineup for you tonight. At 6 o'clock in the 6 o'clock hour, we have Sarah Fajardo, the policy director of the American Civil Liberties Union. And we also have Jennifer Selletti, director of and training and communication at the New Jersey Office of the Public Defender. At 7 o'clock, we have the Payne Report with Congressman Payne. At 8 o'clock, we're going to have the rundown of, reversing that. At 7 o'clock, we're going to have the rundown of events, and we're going to have DJ Rhino and the state of hip hop. And at 8 o'clock, we're going to have the Payne Report with Congressman Payne. So welcome here. And Miss Selletti, I said your name correctly.
Yep.
All right, great. And for a better introduction for this segment, because we're really honored to have you here. Sarah Fajardo has been on our show multiple times, and every time you're on, we learn a lot about what's going on with policing, what the ACL is doing. And I did not realize until you started coming on the show, we started doing these shows, and Zaid started really talking about what the ACLU does, that like all the different history and how deep they are in the history of policing and reform within Newark. But to give both of you and this segment a better introduction, we're going to introduce through the legendary activist, person who's been doing activism not just in Newark, but all over the region for many, many years. If there is a movement, if there is something that people are working on to try to liberate our communities, Zaid has really been there. He's been there. He knows the people who are there. So Zaid, can you give us a more proper introduction?
That was not a paid introduction, by the way. The only part that I wouldn't edit is the many part, the many years. The rest is probably, a bit of embellishment. Right on, everybody. It's another night, another good, big, solid, powerful Friday night. I'm proud to have with me two sharp warrior women on the front for social justice, particularly on the intractable, difficult, deep-seated, hard-nosed, grimy front that is the battle for police accountability and police reform. Both Sarah Fajardo and Jennifer Selletti have been really, getting at it and helping in a great big way, leading in a profound way on this issue. I'll start with Jen because one of the things I was just teasing Jen because she's also quite an athlete in addition to being a tough lawyer and social justice advocate. We were talking about she's got certification as a diver and through the Coast Guard, and I said, Coast Guard is a branch of the military that they don't make movies about. And Jennifer is in the office of the public defender, and public defenders get bad raps in media also, right? But the New Jersey Office of Public Defender should not be getting that rap, right? The New Jersey Office of Public Defender, right, has public defenders who get in the street with the people. Oh yes, let me tell you something. We were in the streets last summer, in that hot George Floyd summer. There were public defenders for Black lives in the streets with us, right? And I've had several members locally from the public defenders following our work on this front and in the streets with us as we have marched and protested and even marched and rallied on the FOP locally, right? Public defenders have been with us, right? Just within the last, she's got 3 op-eds, strong op-eds, just within the last few months on this police reform battle that we're doing. And so I'm happy to have with us for the first time Jennifer Selletti from the Office of the Public Defender, right? You already acknowledged Sarah. Sarah is my heart and my leadership over at ACLU, right? Came only been with us a couple of years, but came right in and just and hit the turf like a wrecking ball. Bam, So this is what we got to do. All right, let's go. And when she gets going, I mean, sometimes Sarah can get some rest. Sarah, make sure you get a little rest. She gets out there. She gets at it. So I'm proud to have them both with us.
What's going on in policing? Why?
we got
Because
to talk.
you were like, we need to get the ACLU on, we need to get the public defender's office on.
Yeah,
Why?
yeah,
What's going
yeah.
on?
What's
Because
happening?
I heard there are good things going on, right? Like the legislature is doing something.
You know, we had Yannick Wood on a couple weeks ago. Remember young Yannick from the New Jersey Institute of Social Justice? We did that powerful op-ed. You know, it's been a year since George Floyd, and New Jersey state legislator has done nothing on police reform. So we've given New Jersey legislature something to do on that. We had a package of strong police reform bills, the CCRB bill, right? The police transparency bill, a brand new bill to end qualified immunity, and a bill to ban chokeholds, or the George Floyd bill. They did everything.
Those all passed, right?
They came back with a bill that makes a mockery. Listen to me. That makes a mockery out of the whole battle to make body cameras relevant to police accountability, right? So that's the stuff we got to unpack. How bad and how backwards and how off New Jersey legislator has been on this, in spite of all of the lobbying and pressuring and organizing and mobilizing the community has done, and how much more work we got to do. But we're definitely turning the volume up, and we tend to come away from this thing at some point with some victories. So that's what we're going to talk about. We good?
We're good. What's going on? Talk to us. Sarah, Jen?
Right on. I'm gonna pass it to Jen, but Zaid, I think that's where you were going too, because just to clarify, like none of those priority bills have passed. We haven't seen movement. We thought we might have movement on the CCRB bill. I'll get to that later, but it was a really terrible month where we saw a really challenging and terrible bill come through. In spite of all of the work that we've done, that the community has done, and Jen is going to talk about that bill that moved forward, flew through the legislature, flew through in 2 weeks with very little opportunity for engagement. Legislators didn't know what they were voting on and were surprised by the vociferous hundreds of people turning out against this bill. Anyway, I'll be quiet and let Jen go for it.
No, yeah.
She's the expert.
I mean, that is the worst part about this bill, right? Is we have been advocating for really meaningful police reform since George Floyd's murder, right? For the last year. And after all of that, and hearing our reforms, none of them even get to a hearing stage. And then about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was, we find out that the police officers union has snuck through a bill that would allow police officers to watch their body camera footage before they write a police report. So before they have to describe what happens, they get a chance to watch a preview. They get a chance to watch their body camera footage before they write their police report, so that they can make sure that their stories match up to whatever is on the tape. And of all of these really important reforms that we've been advocating and can't get a hearing on, that's the one that goes through. And like Sarah said, it flew through. I think it was 10 days from start to finish, with hearings where we heard legislators saying that we haven't had a chance to really look at the bill. A lot of the language is vague. There were amendments going into the bill at the last minute, but that one snuck through. And that's why we're calling on Governor Murphy to veto this bill, because it was slapped together. It's not something that's good for anybody. And we need to get it right if we're going to legislate body cameras. We really need to do this right so that it's fair for everybody.
So when it sounds so innocuous, right? Like all they want to do is look at what happened, write it up, so that they're not inconsistent. What's wrong with that?
So, they talk about accuracy, right? And it sounds good to say, well, we want to be accurate. And I'm not going to go into the weeds and technicalities about the science behind all of this, but, evidence in court is about more than what is on a videotape. If the evidence in court was about what was on a videotape, we wouldn't need police officers to testify, right? When a witness takes the witness stand to testify in a case, we get to question them about their memory, about their ability to kind of figure out what's going on in a situation, about the stress that they might have been under and what that does to their memories. So by allowing people to watch a videotape, it really allows them to cheat. We will never know whether an officer testifying on the witness stand actually remembers things, or whether he just watched it on the tape and is now repeating what he sees on the tape. And that makes a difference not only when we're kind of judging the tape and what's on it, It also makes a difference when you have to cross-examine that officer about things that are not on the tape, because we never get a chance to sort of test their memory the same way we do with other witnesses in a case. So
what I'm going to say is on that part of memory, because I think that that's probably where the real tension lies, and where most people don't understand why this is so bad. So can you elaborate more on what that means? Because you were talking about the importance of getting what's in the officer's head without them having to rehearse other things. What is the real explosive tension? What does that mean? What does that mean for communities? Like Black people have been suffering from police brutality, et cetera. Like, what does that mean for us?
So I can give you an example. So a young Black man standing on a street corner in a hoodie, right? And a police officer stops that person and searches them. Under the law, you're not allowed to stop and search somebody unless you have reasonable suspicion or probable cause. And those are terms of art in the law. But what they mean is you have to be able to explain the reasons, to articulate, to explain the reasons why you stopped that person. And they have to be objective facts. So by allowing an officer to watch it, so an officer who stops someone on the street, our law says if you stop somebody based on a hunch, I don't like the looks of the young Black man standing on the street corner in a hoodie, that is an illegal search, right? So by allowing the officer to watch the tape, we'll never know what was in his or her head when they stopped that person on the street. Did they stop them because they had a hunch, which is totally illegal? Or did they stop them because maybe they saw something in the waistband? Maybe they saw an exchange of money for an object, right? Those would be reasons to stop a person. But by allowing them to watch the tape, we'll never know what was going on in the officer's head when he made the stop. And that allows an officer to really engage in the kind of an explicit bias, clearly, and misconduct, very clearly. But even for officers that are quote unquote the good officers, it allows them to use implicit bias. Right? We talk all the time about trying to eliminate implicit bias from policing and training officers on implicit bias and making sure they have the tools to make sure they're not acting on bias in the street. When they have the ability to watch the videotapes to stop somebody and then watch a videotape to make up the reasons why they stopped them later by what's on the tape, we have now gone backwards when it comes to trying to achieve racial justice in policing and trying to eliminate implicit bias. So that to me is how it impacts communities.
Can we break down the two things that you said? Because you said that for bad cops, it's just horrible for everybody. And even for police officers who are not bad cops, it's bad because of implicit bias. Can we break those down one at a time and just and slowly, right? Like what does it mean for a police officer who is a bad police officer? How does that help them lie? And what are the implications of that?
So for a bad police officer, this one is kind of easy because it enables the police officer to know what's been captured on tape and what hasn't before they write their report. So if you're a police officer and you want to lie about what happened, you get to watch the tape and make sure that every word you put in your report conforms to the tape. And we all know that the tape is not the entire event, right? Things happen before the tape goes on. Things are happening behind you. Things are happening out of earshot, right? So an officer can look and be like, you can say, okay, now I know what's been captured on the tape. So an officer who wants to commit misconduct then says, well, before I turned the tape on, I saw him reach into his waistband, right? Or after I turned the tape off, he swung at me, right? So because now they've seen the tape, so they know what's on it. So I think the misconduct piece is pretty clear. It just kind of lets them make sure that their report matches the tape.
And Jen, you gave the example. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no.
Sorry, go ahead. Oh, I just wanted Sorry, I think I have a little delay on my end. Jen had a good example.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Jen had a good example too of if someone is racially profiling. If a cop's racially profiling someone, stops them and for no good reason, and then watches the tape and says, oh, look, like there was a bulge in their pocket. Like it could be a wallet or it could be something else. Or I saw somebody hand something to somebody else. And so that was the reasonable cause. And that was the reasonable suspicion. You know, you can explain away some of that implicit bias. You can explain away, or like you said, Jen, conform your story to what you have as like tangible evidence.
And I think one of the things that makes it clear, one of the things that made it clear how egregious this is for lying, cheating, is that what we look at is more than just what's on the camera. There's a lot of things that aren't on the camera that they will have to testify to. They will have to testify to things that are out of reach of the camera. So they actually don't know everything that the camera is recording. And that's why the camera is a check on police misconduct. And I think, is that what you're trying to say? The camera is a check on police stories. The camera ceases to be a check on police stories. And it actually undermines the entire reason why we had cameras to begin with. Because cameras were supposed to be a check on police testimony. What you're telling me is that this bill makes cameras not a check, but then a tool for police misconduct of the worst kind. Is that really what you're getting at?
Yeah. And you know, it's funny that you use the word tool, because the police officers kept saying in these hearings, well, we have this tool, so now we should be able to use it. And, you know, you want to scream, you only got this tool because we can't trust you and you're not accountable, right? So it's like, it's not that you get the tool and then you get to use it to commit more misconduct. The reason that we gave officers body cameras in the first place is, you're exactly right. The reason we gave the police officers body cameras is because of police misconduct and because of the kind of misconduct that we had been seeing, and the rise of catching misconduct on other forms of videotape, right? So when I hear officers say that they want to use this as a tool to be more accurate and to do their jobs better, we have to be reminded of exactly what you said, why they got cameras in the first place. I think the other thing is no one is saying, and I want to be clear that nobody who's opposed to this bill is saying that police officers should never get to watch their tape. What we're saying is, first you record what you remember, right? So first you write your report from your memory, then watch the tape all you want, and all you have to do is file a supplemental report and say, oh, I'm sorry. When I wrote my first report, I remembered it as a gray hoodie, and now after watching the tape, I realize the hoodie is blue. So if they're only concerned about accuracy, they're going to get their accuracy. We're just asking that we be able to preserve both their memory, their independent memory of an event, but we're going to give them the opportunity to then watch the tape and then write a report that captures the accuracy. So they can get both. We're not the ones, we're not asking for either or. We want both. We want accurate reports, but we also want to know what the officer remembers and what was going on in her head when she made the stop. We want both of those things.
Because the entire reason to have the cameras is to check the testimony, right? Like it seems like in the legislation, they forgot that cameras were a check on police, not a tool to enhance their ability to get away with things.
They ain't forget a damn thing. They did that on purpose. Let me put it this way. Let me bring some black eyed peas and some collard greens and some of this, right? This thing was done just several days after the anniversary of the massacre of the Charleston Nine. At the front of the massacre of the Charleston Nine, let us remember, was the targeting and the assassination of Reverend State Senator Clementa Pinckney from Charleston, South Carolina. Why is Mr. Pinckney so important to this discussion? It was Mr. Pinckney who made a call for body cameras in the wake of a horrible police killing in South Carolina that was captured on videotape, right? And the officer who was involved in the incident, right, totally lied about what happened and what was ultimately shown on the videotape. And in the deep South, Saw Palmetto Confederate state of South Carolina, Pinckney, by virtue of his capacity as an organizer and a community leader and a progressive elected official got that bill passed and got it passed relatively quickly. And it blew the country's mind, right? That in a state with that kind of dark backwardness as South Carolina, this black man was able to get out in front and lead the charge and get that bill passed. He was dead within 3 months, right? So I'm looking at this as a son of the black community, right? Very reverent of my ancestors, and this new ancestor probably turning over in his grave, looking at Jersey doing something like this. And I'm gonna call somebody out on this too, because see, the reforms we're trying to push, I mean, particularly our Civilian Review Board, we're led by our beloved progressive mayor Ras Baraka, right? My little brother up in the of Amir and Amina Baraka, right? So we got some heavy stuff coming out of Newark on the progressive front for police reform. But we get this bill being led by a local legislator, right, who was in the pocket of the police department. She's got law enforcement background. She's actually active law enforcement background, and that's Shanique Spade. And she knows good and well that the community is driving something totally different, driving a totally different car, totally different rhythm, totally different speed, and she comes out of the blue with this and is not alone. Only one person in the assembly voted against it, and only 4 in the Senate voted against it. And I would say our stand-up leaders from this area were those who voted against it, like Brittany Timberlake, who we just had on last week. My daughter Brittany, who I'm very proud of. She's the only one in the assembly that said this is caca, ain't no principle in this. This is wrong. I'm not gonna put my name on this. I'm not gonna sign on to this, right? And I salute her for that, right? Senator Ronald Rice, Senator Nia Gill, right? Strong and senators. Remember, Senator Rice is also law enforcement, combat Vietnam veteran, and police officer, right? Knows what good policing is and what bad policing is. Said this is not it, right? So now that background and that context needs to be added to this discussion, in my modest judgment. And I'm trying to be polite. Jonathan, you muted. You muted, Jonathan.
All right. So just so Zaid, when you're talking about the political context of this, what does that mean when you're talking about a lot of progressive legislation that gets derailed, like none of it passed? The only police reform bill that passed so far is a reform to take a tool that was a check on police and make it a tool in which they can use it to hide the truth.
Look, let me put it this way. Let me put it this way, right? This bill was so bad that even the Star Ledger came out against it, right? I mean, just a few years ago, the Star Ledger. Yes, I put it in the chat. Mike should run it through so folks can see the link to it, right? I mean, a few years. Well, Star Ledger is going through its own transformation. It's a new generation of reporters. Star Ledger gave us the Force Report several years ago, right? So that as journalists, they understand the centrality of the importance of this police reform question that this country is going through and that the state is going through, right? But historically, the Star Ledger has been very much, supporting of the police department and state law enforcement. So this is a real, step in the right direction for them. So this whole motion, the whole national energy around police reform is in a fundamentally different place than this, right? This is all we got to show for all this pushing that we did. And let us remember also, right, for all of, we're not talking about Donald Trump, right? We're not talking about Mitch McConnell. We're talking about Democrats in the Assembly and in the Senate who jumped on this, as just a straight, and I'll put it in very plain way, this is a straight gimme to the police union, right? And it's absolutely in the way of everything that we need to be talking about.
And Zaid,
step backwards.
Zaid, who's up for re-election and who's up for election in November?
Oh shoot, man, that's I got to stop. now.
Yeah, no,
It seemed like that was a
everybody
loaded
is.
question.
Right, yeah, right.
Everybody
It
is.
should be a question to folks who are coming back to our community looking for our vote. Did you vote for this? Did you participate in this? Did you really do this? I mean,
Yeah.
that's what the paper. This says you voted on this, right? And this all you got for us, and you want us to vote for you? Are you serious? Yeah, folks do need to be held accountable for that. Absolutely. Thank you for that. So Sarah, pass me
There, the one thing too, I just wanted to jump on what you said about the unions, because there is a real problem with police union and police union power. I mean, not only the power to drive this bill through and terrify members of the legislature that they're not going to get police union support unless they vote for it, but also just, walking into that hearing where the police unions got as much time as they want. And I am really tired of hearing people in the police union say, well, none of the people from the public defender's office have sat in a patrol car for the last 30 years. They're basically telling legislators that we don't have the authority to speak about policing because we haven't sat in a police car. When last time I checked, none of these people have ever cross-examined a police officer in a courtroom. None of them know the court rules. None of them have studied the science on memory and witness memory and how you can so easily taint a witness's memory by showing them a video. And yet it just seems like everybody believes that the only people, all of our elected officials seem to believe that the only people who have the power to speak about policing are the police. And I would say that is the reason we are in the situation we are in, is because we have only listened to police when it comes to policing. And it's time for them to step aside. And it's time for legislators to start looking to the people who are in courtrooms every single day and out in the streets every single day to tell them a thing or two about policing. And that was one of the things that was most frustrating about this experience.
Right on, Jen. I see what thing, and this is the thing I have been saying that folks have been saying for decades. That we're talking about, police accountability and police reform in a very real way. We're talking about a very basic principle in democracy, right? The last 4 presidents of the United States haven't seen an ounce of military service, yet they were commander-in-chief of the top military superpower in the world with a Congress to work with to hold the military accountable. But we can't talk about police not cheating on body cameras. We can't talk about a civilian review board to have independent investigation when Internal Affairs does absolutely nothing but cover corrupt policing. It's obscene, right? And it's particularly obscene because it always, the walls tend to go up highest, thickest, and longest when black and brown people are sounding the drum and out in front of raising the question, because overwhelmingly we're the targets of bad policing, right? So just go ahead. I'm sorry, because
there was something that that you said just now and it goes back to the question before. We talked about why a bad police officer or one that had bad intent, why this is like a bonanza. This is just horrific, right? But you mentioned something in terms of the science of what happens to memory when you watch a video, right? Or when you show a video. Because I think that it seems like the more you understand about that, the more that this becomes even more egregious, right? Like right before we were talking about using a tool that was used to check the police, it no longer checks the police if the governor signs this. And if he signs this, I'm not voting for him, period. Done. We're good. He got 94% of the black vote. Will not get my vote if he signs this. So when you're looking at this, can you explain to us what the science is, even if you're a good, well-meaning cop? Right? Even if your intent is really good, even if you have the best of motivations, what is so horrific about this bill, given the science?
Okay. So New Jersey is actually a leader in this science. About 10 years ago, in a case called State versus Henderson, we adopted the cognitive science about memory and kind of enshrined it in our case law and our court rules. But basically what it says is once you watch a video, your memory of an event becomes tainted by the video. I guess the easiest way to think about it is the video is one piece of evidence, and your independent memory, your brain, is a separate piece of evidence. Once you watch the video, those two lines of evidence merge, and you'll never be able to separate what you can actually remember from what's on the video. It also, another thing cameras do is they have something called perspective bias. So think about where you wear a body camera. If they wear them right here, and they have a certain perspective, like a certain point of view, a certain frame. Once an officer watches a body camera, their memory will be much better for the things that are on the tape, and they will minimize stuff that was going on, say, behind them or before or after. And they tend to focus, and their memory becomes sort of enhanced and entrenched only in what is on the tape. So that's like kind of two reasons why we say that the video taints memory. And once somebody's memory has been tainted, you can never untaint it. It's like jamming toothpaste back in a tube. Like once your independent memory and the videotape merge, you can't get it back. And that becomes important as we have to test witness memory, not just for the things that are on the videotape, but off of it. So if you have a police officer who gets everything quote unquote right, their report is 100% accurate, how will we know whether they're right about the things that are off the tape? It almost gives people this fiction that the officer can remember everything perfectly because they've had a chance to sort of cheat on the test by watching the video. And I don't mean cheat in a negative way. I just mean like you got to look at the answers before you took the test. So then when we start to cross-examine the officer about things that aren't on the video, the jury is going to be likely to think, well, they have a really good memory, so I'm just going to believe them, right? So this is why we try to keep the independent memory and the videotape separate. I don't know if all of that makes sense.
It seems like what you said goes in two directions, right? Or there are two separate reasons that you gave, and I'm just trying to see if I can articulate them, right? You're saying first, under the best of circumstances, you have destroyed evidence. Like this law, because memory, right, and what you remember becomes lost once you view the videotape. Like once you view the videotape, then certain memories that you have, certain recollections no longer exist. They become the same as the tape. That means that no matter what the intent is, no matter what the cop is, this law allows for the destruction of evidence because once it's gone, right? So that means that critical evidence in a police case is destroyed by looking at the video because they forget, or at least it's tainted, what's not on the video. I think the second thing that it seems like you were saying, besides destroying evidence, you taint evidence because the evidence, right, that's left, right, the original evidence is destroyed because that memory merges with whatever's on the camera. But what's worse is that now you don't just have destroyed evidence, you have tainted evidence, which is hypercharged and biased in favor of the police officer because their testimony now seems rehearsed. Were those the 2 points to it?
Yeah, I think we should have had you testify. That was great.
Yeah, and Jen, do you want to talk about like what this means for the cases? Like you've been defending people. How many thousands of people have you defended in your career?
Yeah,
like,
do I get a chance to look at the tape when they bust me upside the head too?
Well, okay, so now this is where we get into the amendment. And to answer your question, thousands, and I've tried, 50 jury trials. I've cross-examined. I was trying to add it up for the hearing, probably close to 1,000 police officers in my career, but also lay witnesses, right? So I don't know. Do you want me to talk about the amendment now? I don't know if we want to go to the amendment.
Well, we can, right? Like, I'm sorry.
Okay, because Zaid was talking about the cop busting him upside the head and not being able to sue it. So one of the things that we did, and we were probably stupid for doing this, but when we did these hearings, was we pointed out the fact that it was crazy to let the officer look at their video camera footage when no other witness can do that.
Right.
Because I thought in my testimony that by pointing that out, they would say, oh yeah, it's ridiculous. We would never let the accused see it. We would never let a lay witness see their testimony. The amendment that they snuck in at the last minute would allow everybody to see the body camera footage before they give a statement. So their solution to the problem of tainting witness memory is let's just taint the memory of all the witnesses and then it will be fair. So that's why I say, like, at the last minute, they made an amendment that made this bill 10 times worse. And I don't even know how that would work in practice, like how you were going to let every witness in the case watch the video when we specifically tell jurors that a witness's memory is tainted if they've watched a video or heard something like it before they give their statement.
And we also know that when police take you behind in custody and threatening you, they're going to tell you that they got the whole thing on videotape anyway, and we already have our version already taken care of. So you might as well just go ahead and plead down on this thing, before we you wind up facing the full wrath of the court and facing the maximum amount of time that you can face. So folks are intimidated as police coerce confessions out of people, and they're not getting to see that. they may get to see it after, but they're not going to get to see that in practice. That's not going to happen. That's just not going to happen. We got a case, and I'll just segue because we've got a case that I'm actually very concerned about. There's some players and that are kind of in the way of the case, unfortunately. But there's a case that just took place a few months ago in the South Water that's got these kind of dimensions. It's a bad stop. And most particularly concerned about this whole thing is that it was several blood brothers, right, in their own neighborhood, at their own cars, and the police jump out at two of these brothers, and one sees his brother being taken down and has a moment where, I don't know if I can stand by and just videotape this, because that's what everybody did with George, and George is gone, and he jumped in it and tried to come to his brother's aid, and all four of them wound up getting charged. But there's already questions about how to handle this videotape, right? How to handle this videotape. So and what I'm saying that to say also is that after all of the mighty summer of protest that was 2020, right, by so many young people, black, brown, and white, all over the country and all over the state, right? If we come away with nothing from the powers that be on police reform and police misbehaving continues, right? The next hot summer, and it's already been very hot, and we just in the beginning of July, might be a very different summer, right? Folks might respond to bad policing in another way. It's been a few minutes since folks have burnt this country to the ground over this stuff. But that too can happen again if we're not careful.
So in there, I read that there were certain, and maybe I may have read this incorrectly, but they limited where this can be done, and I don't know how that plays out, right? Like they said something like it can't be used in cases where somebody had serious bodily injury. It can't be used in cases where somebody is killed. And it can't be used in cases where somebody is suing. Can you explain what those amendments are? Did that make the bill better? I don't know.
Jen, you're all over this. Jen is also one of the experts on this issue in New Jersey. So I'm just really excited to hear from you and continue to learn from you.
Oh, thank you. The original bill, and I think it's important to take a step back and realize that after George Floyd was murdered, we enacted a body camera bill that was carefully crafted by the Attorney General, and there were specific circumstances in which officers could not view body camera footage. And anytime an arrest was made, they were not allowed to view the body camera footage. That bill passed. The unions never said a peep. It passed in November 2020. Right. So we are not talking about the laws that are changing. This is November 2020. We just passed this bill, and the unions are trying to get a do-over here. So to answer your question about these carve-outs and these amendments, all of those ones that you just talked about were also in the original Attorney General's bill. all the, and we support. We don't think that officers should be looking at it in use of force cases. We don't think they should be looking at it when someone dies in their custody. We don't think they should be looking at it if there's a complaint, right? All of those are good. What they did was they pulled out what they're calling routine stops, and not a person could define what routine meant at any of these hearings, which means that most arrests, the police officers are going to be able to look at the videotape. So I think it's important to remember that all of those things that you were talking about were part of the bill, and we don't think officers should be looking at it. But it is kind of strange that the police unions were talking about how stressful it is to be at a scene and how much pressure they're under and why they need to look at their videotapes so that they can get their reports right. Yet I would argue that the most stressful situation an officer can be in is one where they kill someone, and that's exempt, and they didn't have a problem with that. So there's a lot of inconsistency there. And we're just saying they shouldn't ever be able to look at it until after they've written their report. That's what the Attorney General wanted. That's a sound rule that comports with the science and the law. But it was just that one thing that was changed.
And can I underline, I just want to underline again that the process, right? Like New Jersey took a really good step, right, to make body cameras available and make funding available to body cameras for New Jersey police departments, and put in carefully crafted, researched, science-backed regulations and guidelines that were weighed in on by, like Jen said, the police unions, by advocacy groups, by expert officials, and the PD, or the OPD, right? Like Office of Public Defender as well. And a few months later, this issue was brought up, and in the very last days of the session, as the budget, billions of dollars is getting shoved through the legislature. Hundreds of bills are moving through the legislature. This body camera bill flew, right? And so just wanted to underline that process.
And to add to the potential horrific level of this law, the exceptions that I talked about are just a few cases. But if in the majority of their arrest cases, they contain and destroy evidence, right? Just on the natural process of looking at the camera, destroy, and then bias evidence in police favor. That means that these arrests are going to be leading to more convictions of potentially wrongful convictions, because you have, at best, you have destroyed evidence and you have tainted evidence when you are going to be taking away someone's liberty, property. You're going to be arresting someone. You're going to be changing their life. If they get convicted, it fundamentally changes their life. And in the majority of these cases, this evidence is now destroyed or tainted and potentially leading to a conviction.
Yeah.
Is that the real reason for the objection? It's not about the high profile cases. It's about the everyday cases that actually lead up numbers and destroy communities. Most of the time, we don't read about everybody who's arrested and convicted, or convicted wrongly. But this explodes it, because everyone, would you agree that everyone who is convicted when the officer has read the testimony first now has a conviction that is based on both destroyed evidence and biased, tainted evidence?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the other things that has sort of bothered me over the last year, as we look at reforms in the wake of George Floyd's death, is that we forget about the day-to-day interactions between police and citizens. And of course, we want to end chokeholds. We're supportive of all of these things to make sure that nobody ever dies again at the hands of police, of course. But in my experience as a criminal defense attorney, it is the routine street stop, the drug stop, the gun cases, sort of the routine patrol stops where I have seen personally the most misconduct and where I feel like we need the most checks, right? Because we're really getting into an officer's minds, like I was saying before, and what they knew and what they're thinking and how the circumstances, maybe after they pull a car to the side of the road, how those circumstances evolve. it's much more prone to sort of armchair quarterbacking and I don't want to say sometimes lying, but sometimes just like really stretching it to make the facts fit. So while we do need to look at these horrific incidents of misconduct and make sure that they don't happen, I don't want people to forget what you were just saying, that it's the routine interaction between police every single day that is sending people to prison for nonviolent drug offenses that we in New Jersey, we're incarcerating, our ratio of incarceration for people of color in New Jersey on drug offenses is astronomical. We were number one in the country when it comes to the racial disparity between Black and white people in prison. And
Jersey?
Yes.
Place of racial profiling?
Exactly.
Racial
Surprise.
No.
So by doing this, what you're gonna do is make it easier for cops to send people to prison for nonviolent offenses. And look, we hear the police unions saying, I think it was the state PBA president had said last year at a hearing that it's offensive to him that we say that the system is racially biased. So that's what we're dealing with on one end. And on the other end, we have this vast racial disparity, and it's because of the nonviolent drug offenses. That is what is filling our prisons, nonviolent offenses. So to me, this legislation, I'm so passionate about this because it really gets at the heart of it. And I see the most abuse and the most misconduct and the most exaggerating and fudging of police reports on the routine street stops, because those are the ones where, supervisors are less likely to be watching, right? So I don't want to forget about those. And that was probably a really long-winded way of just emphasizing your point. But I don't want to forget that those day-to-day interactions are just as important, if not in some ways even more so than individual incidents that might capture people's attention on the news.
And that's where this bill, instead of expediting police reform, actually expedites mass incarceration. We need to be clear about that. Right on.
Absolutely.
100%. And I also just want to, oh, sorry, go ahead, Jonathan. I keep jumping in.
No. I keep wanting, you're our guest. I want to hear from you. So yeah, what were you saying?
Okay. I also just want to pick up on that thread, Jen, because what we've seen this year in New Jersey in the legislature is we finally legalized cannabis after years and years and years of fighting for this reform. And what was the reaction from police unions? It was an outrage. It was, we're taking like a tool away, right? For arrests, for stops, for, reasonable search and seizure. And we know that marijuana arrests were driving up our arrest rates in New Jersey, like we already talked about in many other shows. But, I'll say it again, 3 Black folks to every 1 white person was getting arrested for cannabis. And so we've taken that tool away, I guess, i.e. eliminated this horrible discrepancy and kept pace with many other states and many other places, right? So that happened earlier this year. So I don't think it's a surprise to see a pro-police, a police-driven, a police union-driven, and I've been trying to use language about police lobbyists. ACLU is very pro-union, and also the unbalanced power that the police lobbyists are wielding is really out of control. So I just wanted to lift up that other context. And that also gets towards, what about this other police reform package that has been baking and bubbling and boiling and being pushed by Newark residents for generations, decades, right? For police oversight, for CCRBs.
That's right. Since the mid-'60s.
Exactly. And so we see this one bill fly through. We see, and Angela McKnight, Assemblywoman McKnight, pushing for the CCRB bill to come up for a vote, and Raz Baraka to move this issue forward. We rallied on the steps of the State House in Trenton, only to face a big orange barricade to, make sure that the police reform activists were kept on the lawn.
That too may have been unprecedented. That was ridiculous.
It was significant
to the public. That was offensive. Offensive.
And the week
People
before, right?
Around the State House all the time. It's the nature of what you do when when you're building and fighting for legislation. It's the nature of what you do. But when we come Black, brown, and white from all over the state over these civilian oversight pieces. We get barricaded out. Are you serious? It was disgusting. We turned the volume up anyway, though, didn't we?
We did. Yeah, we brought the sound, we brought the passion, and we brought the message, right? And it was echoing throughout Trenton. And so what are we looking at now, right? We're facing elections in November. For every assembly person, every state senator, and the governor, we have not seen the bills pass that we're calling for. We've seen some good things happen this session for sure, but like, we have real work to do on police reform. We saw this bill fly through. We need a veto of the body cam bill, and we need a commitment from our elected officials to move police reform, actual police reform that communities are calling for. And so ACLU is, of course, working with New York Communities for Accountable Policing, the OPD, whoever wants to work with us on this. We're working with and calling on our electeds to commit to actually passing police reform in this lame duck session, right? They come back. Whether or not they get voted out in November, they come back for, November, December, and mid-January, everybody resets. Before January session closes, we need this to happen, and we're not going to wait another year. We've already waited a year. We've waited decades, we've waited generations, but we can't wait any longer.
Yeah, so I think that this is, I think that when you're talking about the egregious nature of this bill, I didn't really understand. I didn't understand how bad it was because when I came into the show, I was trying to figure out like why do they want it, and what was the horrible things about it. But I learned so much just from the looking at, it's really in the science, right? Because they destroy evidence, like objectively. Looking at cameras before you make the decision destroys evidence, and it destroys evidence that could exonerate someone, right? And also, it biases the evidence that's left. It taints it in a serious way against someone. And the routine cases are actually the most important cases, because those routine cases are where most of the people end up getting arrested. So you making these points has been very helpful, and I think that it really is in the science of what happens when people look at video evidence before they actually write a point, because body cameras were made to be checks on testimony, not things that destroy testimony. And so it's one of those things where it's like, wow, now they're using this thing that was a check to really destroy and bias evidence and lead to more incarceration. If the governor signs this, he will have known better, right? Like this, like the stuff that you're talking about is it like elite knowledge and only a few people know this?
No.
He signed a better bill, Jen.
Exactly.
He just signed that better bill. And the AG put out guidelines that didn't include this. Like, the governor's taken action on a scientifically backed process.
In November 2020.
So this is what the November 2020 thing, where you're like, can you explain that and compare that in just a really, can you compare what happened in November to this? Because it seems like because according to you, they have the information and they have the science. Can you explain this for me? Because it is beyond egregious.
So yeah, they had the science, they had the law, they decided to implement body cameras and give every uniformed patrol officer a body camera, and to institute rules for the usage of those cameras that comports with science, our case law, and really common sense, right? And the unions didn't like it, and that's why we are here. I cannot imagine criminal defense attorneys or the ACLU, the OPD, right, sitting on their hands, letting a bill pass, and then 6 months later rolling into the legislature during budget season and saying, hey, can I have a do-over because I don't like what you did 6 months ago? And that's what happens. That's how much power that they have.
Wow.
Exactly.
You were talking about.
And Jonathan, we need to do a whole segment to really just unpack this whole question of the police unions too, right? So we'll just stick a pin in that and let's come back to that. because that's something that we definitely need to talk about, because you know they're the elephants in the room, you know, and then they have this you know, beyond this history of racism and this us versus them, you know, paradigm that makes it almost impossible for people to even have the engagement that we need that leads to reform and healthy police relationships. You know, they have been chumping off elected officials since they chumped off Mayor John Lindsay back in 1966. Right? I don't know if any of y'all can remember that. That was a playboy Republican mayor of New York, right? With the first CCRB in New York City. And we ain't had a strong CCRB anywhere in the country as a consequence.
So we spent like this hour so far talking about this bad, horrific legislation that if the governor actually signs it, I would say that we shouldn't vote for him, because we don't like if he signs something that because it seems like he knows better, right? Like it seems like he passed legislation in November that was science, right? And so if you're like, oh, you've done these really great things, but if you overturn them knowingly, knowing the bad science, knowing that you are actually legislating both the destruction and tainting of evidence that will be used against largely Black communities to to incarcerate more Black people, to put more Black people inside in prison, right? Like disproportionately. We know this is the way that this horrible legislation will be used. They know better. I don't even they know better. If he does it, I'm not voting for him. But what I wanted to do is shift to the legislation that needs to be passed, and we can break that down, right? Like we know what bad police legislation looks like. It's the one that just passed. We know what unconscious legislators are, because I will say anyone who voted for this and voted for the bill before must know that this bill is horrible, right? They must know that the science doesn't comport. So what is the legislation that they need to vote for and pass? Or we survived Christie, we've survived Republicans before. If they don't give us what we want, I don't know what, because this is so bad. So what is the good legislation that's out there?
Sarah, you said take that.
Right on. So I'm going to start with ending qualified immunity, right? Nia Gill, Assemblyman Benji Wimberly have qualified immunity bills out there. We're really eager to work with them to make sure that we end qualified immunity in New Jersey. And QI is a whole nother conversation, but short snippet about what qualified immunity is. It's a shield. It's a legal shield for police that makes it nearly impossible to hold them accountable in the courts, right? So ACLU, we're here for ending qualified immunity. Our partner organizations, New Jersey Institute for Social Justice and Salvation for Social Justice, are really leading on this effort to actually ban and criminalize chokeholds in New Jersey. Right. We don't train on them. Police are not trained on them. They're not supposed to be using them in practice. We need to end them. And we killed a bad bill that would actually make them an option for police to use in New Jersey, a legitimate option. We asked that bill to be held. And so we had a small victory in not advancing a bad bill, but it's beyond time to criminalize and end the use of chokeholds. We also are advocating for a limitation on the use of deadly force, right? There's a handful of systems and situations where police can use deadly force in New Jersey if they feel threatened or perceive a threat. If they observe destruction of property. And there's one more that on the spot I'm forgetting, and this really undermines my argument. But we're limiting it. We want to limit it really to, when someone's running away, when a witness or a suspect is running away from a cop, they can use deadly force to shoot them in the back, right? To stop them from fleeing, right? We want to limit it to a threat, right? If you're perceiving a threat to yourself, right, as an officer, or to somebody in the vicinity, that's when you use deadly force. So that's when we want to limit it. And then the last bill, CCRBs, we could talk, we have had whole segments on civilian oversight of police with the powers that Newark put out and visioned for us. And Ras Baraka helped vision for us. Subpoena power, parallel investigations, community representation, and disciplinary power. That's what we want. And then Jen, I'm going to turn to you for the police transparency bill, because it really ties into this body cam.
So the last bill is a bill that would make police disciplinary records public in New Jersey. 29 other states have more transparent access to police records. In Florida, you can walk into a police station, ask to see a police officer's disciplinary history. You can see it. The sky hasn't fallen. So that, to me, as a criminal defense attorney, I have no special access to police misconduct records. So that means when an officer testifies against my client on a witness stand, I have absolutely no way of knowing if that officer has previously been found disciplined for lying under oath, for falsifying a police report, for doing any number of things that would be highly relevant to his credibility at trial. Like I said, 29 other states, you can see the records. We should be able to see them here in New Jersey too. We shouldn't be bested by states like Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Texas, places that have more transparent
Florida,
access.
Alabama, and Texas doing better than us?
Yeah.
Wait, Alabama and Texas?
Still a strange state of the north, huh?
Wow. Well, we are at the 7:00 hour, but we do have more time. So we don't want to keep you over because we know you have things to do, etc. But if you have more time, I would like to unpack these issues. If you don't have time, we understand. We're always going to bring you back. You've been here before. We'll bring you back again. But do you have time to unpack some of the legislation? I know you talked about it very briefly. And Zaid, is that okay with you as well?
Yeah, that's fine with me. You know that.
No, that's great.
Right.
Yeah, I could do a little bit longer.
Okay, so because we always want to ask first, because of respect the time of our guest, you talked about this legislation of qualified immunity and then chokeholds, and you did it very briefly. Can you point out, like, all of this legislation is there right now to be passed? Can you take your time with qualified immunity and then chokeholds? Like, what does that mean to policing? Why is that so important? And this is true both in the ACLU and as actually a defense attorney, someone responsible for this. How does that impact, like, real people and the injustices that the criminal justice system often puts down on our population?
For sure. I can definitely start on QI, qualified immunity, and Jen, if you want to jump into, always feel free. Just a step back, like ACLU and our advocacy partners came together more than a year ago, right? In the wake of George Floyd's murder, as the entire country was erupting in Black Lives Matter protests, and took a look at what New Jersey has in terms of policing legislation and what we still need to do, where we need to catch up with other states, right? Like Jen talked about the 29 other states that are ahead of us in police transparency. And so I just want to say, right, this was supposed to be a first cut at police reform. This was supposed to be not necessarily low-hanging fruit, because we all know what politics are like and the power of the police unions we've already talked about. But this was just supposed to be a first cut. And, the legislature was calling for police reform. And so we put out this platform and we asked for these things to pass. So just trying to, create some historical perspective, right? We're a year out, more than a year out, and none of these bills have passed. The CCRB bill has had 2 hearings, but it has not passed. On the issue of qualified immunity, right now, in the federal courts, this is like a judicial doctrine that got imported from federal law into New Jersey state law. And it really shields law enforcement and public officials from being subject to civil suits, right? And so, other professions are subject to civil liability, and law enforcement is not. And that means that law enforcement is not held accountable in the courts for severe violence or, killing somebody. There's not a legal recourse for families to sue for damages, for people to sue for damages. Jen, I don't know if you want to jump in on anything further on qualified immunity, but the baseline is that we want to end it. We want to take this imported doctrine that got imported into New Jersey state law. We want to take it out, and literally we're hoping to work with our bill sponsors to take out the option for qualified immunity, and then also create an option for a legal recourse for folks to be able to sue for damages. So that's the hope, and that's where we're trying to go.
And so when someone's able to sue police officers? Does that mean that they would have to have like malpractice insurance? Like what does that mean for people to be able to sue? Why is that so important? Why is that an important issue?
Sure. Yeah, I think that, we're contemplating, and this is like proposed language, right? I think the Assemblyman's bill and the Senator's bill are not the same. But they're both touching on this doctrine of qualified immunity and this shield, right? And this like protection that applies and the lack of legal recourse. Yes, that's an option that, police officers would have to have insurance, right? Other professions have malpractice insurance that helps cover them if there is an issue in court. So that's one of the ways that we think about it.
And is this different from how is this different from the police settlements, right? Like we hear about all these cases, whether it be Breonna Taylor or whether George Floyd, there are millions of dollars that go to the family. So there are civil remedies that exist right now. What is the difference between qualified immunity and the civil remedies of being able to sue the police department and reach these settlements? Why is qualified immunity so important?
Who's paying, right? It's the department, it's the municipality, right? It's not the individual police officer. Mm-hmm. And so we want to end qualified immunity to build accountability, right? This is all about, like, at the end of the day, we're trying to build accountability, we're trying to build transparency, and we're trying to limit force and like really narrow down the instances in which people can be harmed in these interactions with law enforcement. And so qualified immunity would hold police officers liable. And we're pitching this as a bill package because we also want to say, look, like you should also be really limited in the situations where deadly force is warranted and when it's not warranted.
And one more question on this, just for clarification.
Sure.
I'm a teacher. I'm a debate coach.
Awesome.
Can teachers be individually sued?
Debate coach.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that.
Hell yeah. You don't let him get away with that.
Well,
no pressure.
I have really great students and very supportive city. So, but right the really supportive city. So, can teachers be sued? Like, and right now, do we have qualified immunity as teachers?
Qualified immunity applies to a lot of different public official positions. And I'll just kind of counter with a question like, who's able to use deadly force? And like, who's able to have such a significant impact on somebody's life? But it's a good question, right?
That's true. But I was actually just wondering about the legality of it, right? Like, do we, because I know that teachers I thought that teachers could be sued. I'm not sure about that. That's why I just asked, like, as just a pure technical question. Like, I know that when we're talking about teacher stuff, you can be named as an individual teacher in a lawsuit. But I don't know whether that means that we as individuals can be sued. So I was just curious about the law of that, because if teachers can be sued and we're not covered by qualified immunity, then like that would be really interesting in terms of that comparison. But I was just wondering about the legality of that specifically in New Jersey, because I know that different states may have different laws with that. Sorry to just throw that on you.
No, it's great. I'm going to phone a friend and ask Jen if you have a response.
Okay.
My legal friend.
I'm not a civil lawyer. I think the difference. I think that the thing with qualified immunity is that an officer would still have the defenses that regular people have, right? It doesn't mean you don't have defenses. So if an officer does something wrong, all the available defenses would be there. We're just not giving them this special defense. So I don't know. I do not believe, but I'm not certain about qualified immunity for teachers. But I like to just liken it to like, it's eliminating this idea that police officers are somehow special or different. And as Sarah said, there are people who can use deadly force against citizens, which is a power and authority that no one else has. We're not saying they would have no defenses. They would just not have this special, really, really intricate defense that shields most members of the public from ever being able to sue a police officer.
Thank you, Jen. And like, it's so intractable to the point where, our attorney, senior attorney at the ACLU, Karen Thompson's really our issue expert on qualified immunity, and she's phenomenal. But, she's talked about the the reality that like you have to literally have the exact same fact pattern to bring a civil case against an officer. So if my ass got beat, excuse my language, if I got beaten up with a baton that was made out of, plastic versus wood, that could kick my case out, right? Like it's to this point of near impossibility, right? It's sheer impossibility. And so it's like Jen said, it's an extraordinary defense. And I do have to jump off at 5. I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's fine. Like actually, again, this was this week or these last 2 weeks in the legislature. Well, according to Zaid, when I was talking to Zaid and Zaid was talking about it, he was like, wow, this has like been given the legislation that was available and the legislation that was passed. So one thing, so we have you on, we spent an hour on one piece of legislation that was horrific. And I just wanted to talk about some of the legislation that was there. And what the chokehold legislation, that seems almost self-explanatory. It kills people. It's not effective. Why do we have it?
For sure. And, the response that many legislators that I've talked to was like, yeah, this makes sense. We should, officers aren't trained on it in New Jersey, so it's not supposed to be used, or it's not endorsed by the academy who's training people to use it. So that's information that we've gotten from law enforcement. And law enforcement has other restraints available to them, right? That are not chokeholds, and they have other tactics that are available. And so we stand by this position that we do not need chokeholds in New Jersey. Other states like New York just passed bans and criminalized chokeholds. This is not out of the realm of really the trajectory of legislation on this. And so agree with your take that, it's not so far from reality or from what we should be doing.
Now, you said right now the police can shoot someone in the back when they're running away, and that's okay?
It's an allowable use of deadly force. And so there's 3 buckets of opportunity for use of deadly force. And fleeing witness, or fleeing suspect rather, not witness, suspect, is a situation where deadly force could be used. And
because
go ahead.
Oh no, you're saying.
No. I'm just kind of playing out a scenario in my head. Sarah Fajardo is running away. I'm armed and I'm shooting other people in the shopping mall that I'm running away from a cop from, and they shoot me in the back and kill me, right? Use of deadly force. If I'm threatening other people, that's covered by the first instance, right? Or if I'm threatening the police officer and fleeing, that's covered in the first instance. If I'm fleeing, should we be able to use deadly force? The advocacy community that we're working with says no.
And it's broad enough in terms of threat, because threats are very vague. That one of the things that one of the controversies is that when a police officer says, I perceived a threat, and that being, if it's limited to just that, that's still a wide range. What does that mean? Is that too much in and of itself? Because what it seems like the legislation is limiting it down to when the police officer has a legitimate threat. Can you break that down? What constitutes a threat, and is that language even that language too broad?
I'm not able to break it down, but maybe Jen can. And if not, that's okay too.
So yeah, some of these terms then do wind up being subject to interpretation, right? There's not clear definitions for a lot of this. I do want to flag that, the Attorney General guidelines currently have made changes and made improvements when it comes to the use of deadly force. So part of this bill is just codifying the guidelines that are in existence so that the next Attorney General can't, with the stroke of a pen, wipe them away. So that is part of this bill as well. But to answer your question more directly, it's the threat is going to be a set of facts and circumstances, right? It's really hard to define what is a threat to somebody's life. We have to always flesh that out in court. But what this bill does is really narrow it down to only those circumstances where, were the officer not to act, that officer could potentially wind up dead themselves or seriously injure themselves. Really keeping it very narrow rather than allowing some of these other gray areas to still exist in our law.
And I think just to build on that, Jen, like this is one of our goals here with some of this legislation is to acknowledge that police officers and law enforcement are called far too often on far too big a range of issues, right? To respond to all community issues, right? When we're trying to pass marijuana legalization in New Jersey, this really important issue of what happens with youth, right? Like who are using or like, smoking a joint on a corner or buying or selling it. Like, are we now just going to be over policing the youth for cannabis while adults are able to access it? And the legislators that I was talking to were like, we don't want that. What's the other alternative? And we were looking for systems that would be able to rapidly respond to youth smoking a joint on a corner. And like, that's not legal. And we want to respond, but there's not a built-in system, right? So we want to build out our systems of community response and support. And I think that there was like a really genuine desire from the legislature to not over-criminalize youth. And then the reality hit where we're like, we don't have another response mechanism built in. Anyway, so that's like a little bit of a tangent, but it comes back to this like limitation of the purview of police to respond and how they should be responding to the residents of New Jersey who pay their salaries from taxes, right? Like they're public officials. And so we should be able to have oversight. We should be able to have limitations and really target their jobs. Like not target their jobs, but limit like what the scope of their jobs are. And I'm sorry, I do have to hop off for some family stuff, but it's always a pleasure to be with y'all.
Thank you so much. But before you jump off, we just want to ask you that question that we ask everyone. Can you just let us know who you're listening to?
The Hip Hop Talk Show. So that's our goodbye. That's our sign off for you.
Right on. I'm all over Kendrick Lamar this week. Is like top of the playlist to me.
Okay, great, and thank you so much. We'll of course have you back, and also thank you both so much for coming on.
It was muted. She didn't say.
Oh yes, what? Jen.
I'm an old school girl. Like today I was listening to NWA, like old school kind of a girl.
Okay.
Because every once in a while I get very angry and I'm not going to say the song that I'm listening to because I'm representing the public defender's office.
Okay, fair enough.
Right on.
Fair enough. Okay. But thank you so much for coming on. This was a really great and informative session, and we definitely have to have both of you back. I learned so much about the legislation that was passed, and I learned about the legislation that is going to be passed. It actually really elucidated why it was so egregious and horrible and a disrespect to communities of color all over the state. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Tell the governor to veto it. Thank you.
Yes.
Contact
the governor to veto it, or he will not have 94%. Seriously, right? Like, because if you can vote for that, it's just spit in the face. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks y'all.
Weekend,
Good night.
Bye.
Take care. You too. So, Zaid, that was a great session, and I'm glad that you you love the ACLU. I'm glad for that, and I'm glad to always have them on because they really break things down. We were talking about this last week, and I was like, I don't get it. I don't get why. What is the benefit of this legislation? But it's really like egregious because in most of these everyday cases, you are going to destroy evidence and then taint it, right? And it really is that simple, and they know better, right? Like one of the things that was like today is they know better. They passed legislation that was good in November. They looked at body cameras and they looked at the way body cameras work, and they're like, hey, scientifically, you can't use them this way, right? And this was back in November. And so to have this bill and pass this bill when you know the bill goes against the science means that you were hoping that people would be like me, not really understand the science behind it, right? And just go, and because I was just like, well, they're going to look at it, but what's wrong with that? And it just seems bad, but I didn't really know. But unless you know or familiar with the science, then you know, oh my God, this actually destroys the very reason you have to begin with, right? It destroys
the piece of that. Yes, absolutely. The second piece of that, and that's something else we got to really figure out how to look at, and this is part of the gangsterism of Jersey politics, right? Is that this is the end of the legislative session, right? So what they do is that they anything they want to give to any of the powerful lobbies, they kind of just rush them through, because the volume is so much. They dictate what's priority, and there's little to no opportunity for input on the process, right? So, and the thing that made this particularly offensive is that when they did give it the limited hearing that they did, they gave the police union this like a 3-to-1 in time, right? Opportunity to be heard on the issue, and then let them sing its praises, and were really, very agitative and very combative and very protective of this bill when it came to folks who were actually raising the important questions about it and what was wrong about it. And that's a whole other thing that ultimately needs to look at. The process needs reform in and of itself, so it's more transparent.
Yeah, because like the legislators who backed this bill, like I don't understand how they knew the science, and well, I mean, I understand it, right? But that makes it even worse, right? Because they knew the science, but they didn't care. So what would you say about legislators who supported this? Like, because it seems like can we give them the benefit of the doubt that they didn't know the science? Because the science, like after it was explained, the science seems really clear. It seems like, oh, if you you actually destroyed testimony, right? Because if you look at the camera before you write it down, now you only have the camera testimony. You don't have what it had before. You actually undermine the very reason why you had body cameras to begin with, because body cameras was supposed to be a check on police testimony, not to enforce it. You also taint the evidence that's there, because it's now rehearsed testimony that it has greater credibility because it's rehearsed. So it's tainted and it's inaccurate. So, and it seems like once it's explained once, you can't really forget that. It seems really basic what they're doing. So what would you say to legislators who voted for this? Especially if they were Black legislators, they were from Newark, they were from Black communities. What would you talk about?
Son, you ought to be ashamed of their damn self. So I come back to Clement Payne, right? That man lost his life going through some difficult, weeded political legislative territory in South Carolina, right? To take us to another place, right? And so I'm talking about now. I'm on my Black folks. I'm talking about now, right? For them to actually step up now and just totally disregard what it means for all of us who have been victimized by bad policing, and to those of us who have been killed because we advocated for police reform, like Clemente was killed. That's just disgraceful. It is absolutely disgraceful. And the legislators we need to be lifting up are the ones that dared to vote against it, because they understood it in its totality and also understood something called principle. This stuff was unprincipled. Unprincipled. Totally unprincipled.
So what, and here's the situation that if you have, why would legislators who represent the Black community support this? Because they know that people are going to be pissed. It seems like is it political suicide? I don't understand.
No, I think in their small minds and their lack of principled spines, I think it was their way of trying to play nice with the police, right? And they're not the only ones on that. I mean, that's all of them do that. I went and told you about how even big bad Republicans from back in the 60s were intimidated by police unions back then. It's their way of saying, we're going to give you something, guys. Okay, we're not that bad, so you can't be with us. You can't be against us all the time. And police unions also give money. They contribute to campaigns. See, they contribute to campaigns, right? So it genuinely takes folks who have some principle. And I'm shouting out Senator Gill again. I'm shouting out Senator Rice again. I'm shouting out Assemblywoman Timberlake again, right? She's retiring from Bergen County, and she's the author of the Police Transparency Bill. And I'm having moment with a name. But you know, I'm shouting them out because they stood against the grain. They stood against the grain in the name of what was right, and that's leadership. Right? Leadership is willing to not just to do the work of bringing people together, but to bring people together to change conditions that are wrong and to make them right. And sometimes it means standing up to powerful forces who are comfortable with things being wrong because they were benefiting from it, right? And this is a classical case of that. So I'm very proud of our handful of folks who stood up on principle, even though they were basically standing alone up against it. So the rest is now on us to start calling and to really start throwing rocks at the governor's office to not sign this, because it's a serious step backwards on what he has done.
And the thing is that if you're going to give something to the police, I don't think that it is inconceivable to do something positive for police, and that's also positive for the community. Like, as in, police are stressed. They have high suicide rates, making sure they have greater access to counseling, making sure that they have to work fewer hours, making sure, like, there are all sorts of things that you can do to actually help.
That's what we got on the table in Newark that nobody's talking about, right? There's a beautiful program, right? And there's a divide within the police department in spite of the police reform effort led by good police leadership, right? But we have a program called Trauma to Trust, where police officers and community folks are mutually trained in trauma and how trauma are factors in their respective lives and how that can play out in their interactions, and how both sides of the equation need trauma support. Right? And policing heavy trauma, especially the kind of things that these guys face on the job with homicides and child abuse and, you know, kidnapping and all of those kind of things, right?
They just have to look at horrible things every day. They
overworked.
Some of the worst situations.
There should be reforms that have them working 8-hour days instead of 16-hour days. There should be reforms where they're getting proper professional therapeutic help when they have been in the thick of some really dark stuff that is going to be hard on the psyche now and forevermore down the road, right? But that kind of stuff in the military macho of racist patriarchal police culture is, we're above that. We don't need that. And don't you officer talk about you need that, or we're going to isolate you for being a weak officer on a weak chain and a weak link in the chain, right? So
that's still like so like within policing, what you're saying is that there's resistance for police to recognize that they're traumatized, even though they have, like, objectively the highest suicide rates of almost any profession.
How about that? Yes.
Like, yes. I mean, you can't really have it both ways. You can't, like,
I want us to appreciate what we got going on in Newark. I want us to appreciate what we got under Ras Baraka as mayor of Newark. This is outside of the guidelines of our consent decree. What I'm talking about, this particular program, and I participated in this program when I first came on with NCAT, right? Over a period
so this is something that is going on in Newark right now in terms of the trauma response.
It had an interruption with COVID, so it was done and it does not have the same impact in COVID in virtual space, but in actual space, over a period of 3 weeks, people get engagement happens. It happens with the kind of intensity and recognition that's necessary, so people genuinely recognize what trauma looks like and why everybody who's experienced trauma needs help on both sides of the equation, right? And that could have been that's real dialogue that's got to drive police engagement in police reform, right? The dialogue could have been based on real stuff.
Right, and that could have been like data-based legislation that would actually help police officers deal with thing that is most fundamental to the worst parts of their job, right?
Absolutely.
Like, it is something that you could be like if they were standing on principle and wanted to do something for police officers, what we are doing in Newark would have actually been something that they could propose statewide, because if you are a police officer, this is probably something that you need based on the nature of your job, right? Like if you're dealing, like if you're an emergency room doctor, you're going to need some trauma care. If you are a first responder in terms of like ambulance and all the other stuff, you're going to need some trauma care. If you're a first responder in terms of a police officer, you're going to need some trauma care.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Shout out to Equal Justice USA for coming up with this program.
No, this was very informative, man. This was very informative. Hey, DJ Rhino, you there?
Ride.
Yeah, I'm here.
And Rhino, shout out to you. All right, so man, what's going on, man? We are transitioning to the segment, the state of hip hop with DJ Rhino. So DJ Rhino, what's up?
Peace. Well, first off, I want to say happy born to Missy Misdemeanor Elliott. It's her born day today. I just want to say, when that sister first came out, me and my boys, all my friends, we recognized her from a group named Sister that recorded on a music video on the rooftop of one of my friends' buildings in the projects that we lived in New York.
What's the name of the video?
Damn, what video? Brand new. It's called Brand New.
And the group was called Sister. I don't know.
That was the name of the group that she was originally from.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. So, and we recognized her because it was right on the rooftop of our projects. You know what I'm saying? But big ups to Missy Elliott, and happy born day to Missy Elliott. Missy Misdemeanor Elliott. She had a good run. She's still doing it. We still waiting for her to come back into the game, because she's a super songwriter, producer, as an artist, and her visuals and her videos. I mean, she triumphed the whole thing, man. You know what I'm saying?
She did a whole personal transformation right as she was going through the game too. Yeah.
And then even with her own personal stuff with her weight, she got the weight down and then came back and was looking real good. You know what I'm saying? She's still looking real good. So, big ups to Missy, man, for breaking those ceilings, man. Because again, her videos were crazy. The music that her and Timbaland, the combination of her and Timbaland, the music that they came out was groundbreaking. Nobody ever heard music like that before in hip hop or anywhere. You know what I'm saying? So it was huge when Missy came out, man. When she put out The Rain, Super Duper Fly, that was just groundbreaking. I don't know what other word to use for that, man. That was, it was crazy when she came out. And again, the video was crazy, so big ups to Missy Elliott. Happy born day. Also, want to say,
one of the things I was thought you were going to talk about, and when I heard about this, man, I was just so sad, man. Bismarck, he died? Did Bismarck?
I was gonna hold that for later, because I just started, so I didn't get to that yet. But
okay, because I was about to sing in tribute.
No. The whole thing is Bismarcky is still in the hospital. He's still trying to pull through. His family would like respect and privacy on the situation. But somehow the rumor went out, and it happened before. But a rumor went out saying that Bismarck had passed and said he was gone and all of that. And I'm one, because of things like this have happened before in the past. I'm one to hold out until I get all the facts straight. So I didn't post anything. I didn't even get into it until I knew better. And sure enough, you find out that he's still alive. So we're gonna put our prayers and our power and our energy out there for his recovery, man. We want Biz to get better. We want him to come back to us. You know what I'm saying? But Biz is still alive, so we're not going to spread no negative rumors about it.
Oh man!
So really, if it's not on TMZ, it's not true.
I mean, I don't even deal with TMZ. I mean, I'm connected with some other folks. TMZ get their news later. You know what I'm saying? So I don't deal with TMZ, but Biz he's still going, man. And Biz, Biz used to live right on Linden, right off of Halsey Street out here, man.
That's right.
Biz's house. My man Bree brought me to Biz's crib, man. And met that brother, man. He's from out here, man. He put a lot of people on. A lot of people don't know that Biz is behind a few careers out here. You know what I'm saying? We already know, Big Daddy Kane is one of them, man. But Biz did a lot for a lot of people. You know, he was like the middleman for a lot of situations. So big ups and much respects to Biz Markie, man, and respects to his family. And get well, brother, man. The prayers are out there. Now, let's get to the next thing I was going to get to. Of course, this shirt right here, Sugar Hill Records put out a record by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. It was called The Message.
Yes.
Happy anniversary to The Message. The Message was actually written by Melly Mel and Duke Booty, which is Ed Fletcher. Those are the two people who not only wrote the song, but performed on the song.
Mm-hmm.
The song went under the name of Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. When they performed the song, it would be Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. But that record, the recording, was just Melly Mel and Ed Fletcher, Duke Booty. And Melly Mel's famous verse, the last verse on that song, actually was used in a record prior to that called Super Rapping. But it happened to fit better with this song because it was a socially conscious song. Right. Super Rapping, they were just rapping, and he just happened to spit that verse as as one of the rhymes. So it wasn't looked at as that impactful. But once he put it on The Message, that's when everybody felt the chills. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it was the first song. It was the first hip hop song at that time that was speaking anything that was socially conscious, because prior to that song, everything was party. It was all about partying, dancing, have a good time, throw your hands in the air, say ho, rocking on to the break of dawn. You know what I'm saying? That was hip hop at that time.
It was a fist in the face of the music industry.
Yes, and Melly Mel and the brothers didn't want to do the song. Initially, they didn't want to do the song because at the time of that song, when they were trying to work on that song, the biggest rap song at that time was Planet Rock, which was a very, very up-tempo electro funk hip hop song. That was up-tempo. Boom, 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 boom.
Based on that Trans-Europe Express sample.
Yeah. Yeah. So everything back then was up-tempo and dance and party. And so when they had this slow beat with the message.
Right.
Boom, boom. You know what I'm saying? It's like it slowed everything down. Plus the content was serious, so they were afraid that it wasn't going to be a hit. Because if everything else is party and dance and feel good, and we're bringing out this socially conscious, serious, slow song, how's that going to work? But it actually turned the tables around in the whole culture.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Broken glass everywhere. Pussy stairs, rats, roaches, police, fiends. Cop,
it captured the moment. 80s was a dark period. It captured it
it captured the life of what we knew right outside our front door.
That's right.
And after that, that's when you heard, Run DMC, It's Like That, Divine Sounds, What People Do for Money, and stuff like, people jumped on the bandwagon after that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But it was Melly Mel and Duke Booty under the name of Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five that put out The Message, man. And
I use the boxing metaphor, but Melly Mel is a bit of a bodybuilder too. So I should have said,
no doubt.
I should have said it was the strong arm of hip hop into the music industry. That's what I
man. And I'm gonna tell you, I think I told the story once before, but my mother wrote down the lyrics to The Message.
Tell it, yes,
for me to learn.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And at the time, I think she was just trying to get me back into reading at the time. You know what I'm saying? But she wrote down the lyrics to that song, and I learned the lyrics and learned the flow. And that's how I ended up getting into writing rhymes or saying my own rhymes and recording rhymes and stuff like that. Which from my mom's.
That's a great hip-hop story.
Yeah, I would say that, like, when I first heard it, right, like, I was just like, oh, this is poetry, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was the reason why she was able to, like, learn the lyrics. And it was years later that I realized the importance of hip hop as poetry because spoken word, like that tradition is thousands of years old, right? Like you when you're talking about the way in which we talk about poetry is central to our culture. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. It's true. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that record, that song impacted everybody. It impacted everybody. Because you know, when I was coming up in the rap game and doing all my stuff, I thought my story was unique. But then you find out from everybody else that they were all inspired by Melly Mel and The Message. You know what I mean? That was the song that really did it for everybody, you know, in our generation, you know. So yeah, big ups to Melly Mel. Rest in peace, Duke Booty, Ed Fletcher. You know, they because they also did, you know, along with The Message, they also wrote Survival, which was supposed to be The Message 2. They also wrote New York, New York together.
Yes.
Yeah. So, that was all Melly Mel and Duke Booty, Ed Fletcher. So definitely big ups to them.
Good stuff.
The other thing that you brought up to me behind scenes, John, that me and my man G was just talking about too, was the BET Awards. What did you think, John? What's your take on it?
I didn't get a chance to see it.
I actually did not watch the BET Awards. I just read all about it, right? People were just like blowing up the lines about the BET Awards, and I'm like, I should sit back and watch those. But one of the things you talked about, right? Like I thought, because I was following what you were saying about it as well, and you were like, what's up with the way that they're treating women in hip hop? And who gets accolades and who does not?
Yeah, because when they went into the best female rapper awards and stuff like that, man, every single one of them, bruh, every single one of them was, you know, a stripper or what we call the thought rappers, you know, and like every single one that was nominated was a stripper type of rapper. There was no other type of female rapper. They were all the same. Like all of them were doing the same exact thing. And that hurt my heart, man. That hurt my heart because I know what's out here. I know what's out here, bro. And that's not right, man. That's just, it's wrong. It's criminal to our culture. Yeah. It's criminal to our culture. Seriously.
I feel you on that.
Seriously.
Yeah. Now, seriously. Like break that down, man, because, you know, some people might be like, yo, so why you mad, DJ Rhino? Some people would be like that, like would embrace what you characterize as like quote thought rappers, right? They're like, yo, they're bringing out they're bringing out.
I'm glad more female rappers are being noticed, but the type of female rapper that's being noticed, that to act like that's all that's out here. You know what I mean? That's a slap into the face of all our sisters, man. All our, right. You know what I mean? And to the culture, because
break it down. What else is out here? Break down, brother. What else is out here? What else?
Your girl. No name.
Rhapsody. No name.
My peoples. Cyrock, Il Camille. Rhapsody, who's in the game, but still is getting, you know, she's on the sidelines, just like she gets pushed to the sidelines for all these other stripper rappers to shine. You know what I mean? Like all of the conscious sisters, the sisters that's not showing their body, that's not talking crazy and all of this, they're just getting pushed to the side. They're just getting pushed to the side. Like, you're not showing enough skin. Nah, you're not talking raunchy enough. We'll wait on you. You good, but we want to see this, and that's how they treating it. And I'm like, wow, man, that hurts, man. That hurts that there's sisters out here that's dropping real lyrics, real knowledge. And I mean, and this is the thing too. It ain't even about the super consciousness. Just some hard rap lyrics, just some rap lyrics. There's sisters out here that's doing it, man, and they're not getting no shine. They're not getting any shine, but the strippers are getting it, man. These chicks are winning. And that's the other thing. Let's get to this. The BET Awards, not just the categories, but the entire show. The majority, just like the nominees, the majority of the show was stripper rappers. I'm talking about as far as the females and stuff like that.
So you're saying the majority of BET show, like, question, like, did Rhapsody's Eve even get nominated for a Grammy? I don't think he got nominated
for a Grammy. I don't.
Yeah, I don't think he got nominated.
I don't know if it got nominated for a Grammy.
Right, like,
remember,
and I'm just like, it was.
Remember, Nicki Minaj was still real thick at the time, real hot at the time. You know what I'm saying? So it was like they weren't trying to put Eve up against that. You know?
Yeah, and I'm like, yo, Eve, like
Cardi B,
like Rhapsody
Cardi B was real huge when Rhapsody
you said what?
came out. Say Cardi B
was
huge when Rhapsody came out. You know, and they were focusing on Cardi and Nicki, the beef between Cardi and Nicki, the competition between them two, and Rhapsody was just kind of sitting there trying to make her mark on her own. You know what I mean? But let me just say this, man, because
people were like, yo, Rhapsody's Eve, many people said it was the best album they've heard in like 5 years, right? People blew up Rhapsody's Eve. Like when Queen Latifah was on it, that track, all the other, like,
it was good. She had a great album. And she did her thing on the Queen Latifah tribute. Let me say this before I get into, because I'm gonna lay out the strong points of what I saw in the awards, but I want to lay this out first before I get to the strong points. Let's do the bad news before the good news. The bad news was that when you had a situation like Jasmine Sullivan's performance, right? Jasmine Sullivan has an album called Hotels, and she's talking about, you know, women and their senses of promiscuity and all of that, you know what I'm saying, and just different things with their relationships, intimately and sexually, you know, all of that. So, but it's a great album, and she touches real subjects for women and men to listen to. You know what I'm saying? But then she comes out, she gets announced on stage to come out. She's brought on by Maxine Waters. Maxine Waters is standing at a podium, and she says a little something, and then, you know, she says something strong, and then Jasmine Sullivan comes out. And then Jasmine Sullivan brings out Ari Lennox. And then they do this song where they're talking about spitting on it and sitting on it and doing all this stuff. How you do that?
Hold on.
How do you do that? Stop. How do you do that after Maxine Waters was just there introducing you, and then you come out, and Maxine Waters is still in the audience, and you come out and you do a song like that? And my thing is this.
Wow.
On that album, Jasmine Sullivan also has a song with her, and the song that she has with her is speaking about how all of these thought rappers and all of these, you know, these chicks are winning, you know, and how are these chicks winning when
you mean her as in Maxine Waters? Maxine Waters is on the album.
When you got real women like us, how are these hoes winning when you got real women like us? And that's what the song is about. It would have made sense for after Maxine Waters to introduce you, for Jasmine Sullivan to come out with her with the guitar and to sing that song. Not some song talking about sit on it. You understand what I'm saying?
Well, hell yeah.
Right.
Yo, what I said on social media, I said that it was black excellence plated. It was black excellence coated. You know, on the surface, it looked like black excellence, but when you really look at the issues, the deep issues, at all of that underlies all of that, nah, this is not black excellence, man. We have issues. We have some real issues that have to be addressed on a serious level, because something wasn't right about that, man. Something wasn't right about that.
A lot of in 2021.
It was right?
Something like especially in.
Seriously,
I didn't know Maxine Waters was on the album. That's
man, and it was good to see her up there. It was good to see her up there. It was the whole thing. It was the whole thing too.
No, she wasn't on the album. She was on the show.
She wasn't on the album. She was on stage. She was on stage introducing Jasmine Sullivan. Right. So, and that's the whole thing. The theme of the whole awards was Black woman power. You know what I'm saying? It was the power of the Black woman. The year of the Black woman. That's what they called it. The year of the Black woman. So that was the theme of the awards. So if this is the year of the Black woman, where's the real sisters at? You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Where's the real sisters at? The only time we got to see that was the tribute for Queen Latifah with Moni Love, Rhapsody,
And I love Latifah.
MC Light, and Little Kim. And they came out and they represented hard for Queen Latifah. That was a beautiful.
I love Latifah.
Strong.
I love Latifah. I love her acting.
Brick City flavor all the way. That was the strong point of the show. Was that tribute to Queen Latifah? That was everything. That was everything. Another good part of the show, another strong part of the show, was the tribute to DMX. That was Method Man, Busta Rhymes, the actor. What's the name? Michael Williams.
Yeah,
Michael K. Williams.
Yeah.
He came out there. Let me tell you, he sounded like DMX when he came out there.
He resembles him a little bit. Yeah, they got his
some lyrics of DMX, right? He was reciting like maybe one of his prayers or something, one of his lyrics, and he sounded like DMX. He looked like DMX when he was the way he was doing it, man. Like I really felt that tribute. The DMX tribute. You felt Method Man. You felt every word Method Man was going in on some DMX lyrics too, and you just felt it, man. You felt the energy, man. It was like X's spirit was definitely in the house at that moment because you just felt it, man. It was all over, man. And yo, rest in peace, X, man, and big ups to everybody that was a part of that tribute because that really went over well. That I dug. Those two tributes I love, man. DMX. Queen Latifah got the Lifetime Achievement Award.
That got press. Yes.
Yeah. So that was beautiful.
She deserved that.
Another moment that I liked.
I love a new show.
Was strange was Tyler the Creator. Tyler the Creator came out and he did a performance, and I don't know how I feel about Tyler the Creator. Just overall, he's an interesting dude. I can say that he's a very interesting dude. And he comes from this camp called Odd Future, and all of them are, they're just very different dudes. They're all unique brothers, man. And they got their own world, their own set that they come from. You know what I mean? And Tyler's one of them. But Tyler, I loved his performance. I loved the song that he did. It was good, man. Look this stuff up on YouTube because by now you can probably pull it up on YouTube, the performances and all of that stuff. Everything we're talking about, you can probably pull it up on YouTube.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But Tyler the Creator did a good job. Trying to think who else. Taraji P. Henson, of course, she hosted the show and she's always
our girl, love her.
Man, it's DC girl. She's always doing her thing. She always keeps the energy and keeps the spirit right, have you laughing and all of that, man. She's a real positive sister, man. And I love Taraji. So big ups to Taraji. But again, man, a lot of that show was real questionable, man, when it came down to the sisters, man. I feel like just overall, we all, male, female, all of us, we got to do better for the sisters because we can't keep doing that.
Now I'm gonna say something controversial.
Go ahead.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be controversial to y'all, but it's some stuff in the air that it's problematic and it's unfortunate in some cases, right? Mm-hmm. We have somebody that's been on this show, right, and been a rock on this show, who mm-hmm. has been the brunt of some criticism. Some of them I think has been unfair, about some of the grant monies that she's done to do some of her work, right? Mm-hmm. Piece that she did, last year, right? That was spotlighted on the Grammys, right? Speaking squarely to the question of social justice, something like that should have been on there.
Yeah.
That was the place for that.
Yeah,
because 2021, man. Like after all we've been through this year and all that's still going on, and yeah.
And like I said, with the theme being the year of the woman, the year of the Black woman, it should have been so much more of a balance. Because and I was saying this on one of my mixes last weekend. I was saying, I don't have any problem with a Cardi B, Nicki Minaj, Megan Thee Stallion. I don't have any issues with them. We just need the balance. If you're going to give us that, but give us Ciroc. Give us Il Camille.
Yes.
What I'm saying? Give us name. Give us these other sisters that's doing it, man. And I'll be happy. It's not about let's get rid of Cardi B and Megan. Nah, there's a place for all of that. I'm cool with that. But we need the other stuff too. You know what I'm saying? Because if we don't,
it's like when gangster rap was.
If we don't,
it's like when gangster rap was the only thing that was played.
Listen, if we don't showcase other stuff, just like it was, and this is the thing too. How many other people may have watched the BET Awards besides us? You know what I'm saying? Because we're not the only audience that watches Black TV. You understand what I'm saying? Or likes Black culture. You know what I mean? What message is that giving to our people and others who watch that? What message is that giving? You know what I'm saying? So we need to at least represent a balance so that it's a fair give. You know what I'm saying? It's not a fair give when you just showing all of this, and all of this exists, but you're not showing that. So now the world thinks that our culture is about this. You know what I mean? We got to show it all to them.
It's like they're doing the female rappers what happened with gangster rap, right? Where for a while it was the only thing that was played, even though there were a lot more artists out there.
You didn't have any content, anything. It was all just gangster, street, drug dealer, killer. You know, it's like where's the other brothers? Where's the brothers at that's doing other stuff? You know what I mean? Yeah, we got to make sure. This is the thing. When it comes down to our culture, everything that we do, we have to be the gatekeepers. We have to be the gatekeepers because a lot of times, you know, BET is part of Viacom. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times there's other people that are
behind that car. That's right.
There's other people behind what we're doing. You know what I'm saying? It's not just us. And we need to be the ones that's controlling what we're doing. You know what I'm saying? We need to be in control of what we showcase to the world. All the way to the back. That's where people aren't being seen. We need to be controlling all of that too. You know what I'm saying? Because otherwise, man, you know, we putting out false narratives of us. And we letting false narratives of us put out there, and we're not doing anything about it. We're not doing enough about it. We got to do more about it. You know what I mean? Culture's culture, man. We got to respect it, man. That's us, man. That's us. The blood that goes through our veins, bro. The heartbeat, man. This is us. You know what I'm saying? We talking about music and culture and art and science and mathematics. Like, this is us, man. We have to represent it. We have to be the gatekeepers of it all.
That's right.
Seriously.
That's right.
But that's what I got. That's what I got for today, man. That's what I got.
I know.
That's my message. That's my message.
Load a gun, bruh. Load a gun. Blaze.
So thanks, Rhino. Now, question: we didn't get a chance to talk to you about this, Zaid. What are the things that are going on this week and next week? What are some of the things that happened last week and that are going on? I know there were a lot of other things going on. Normally we talk about, but we didn't really get a chance to talk about it this week.
Well, tomorrow marks the 39th anniversary of the conviction and death sentence imposed on Mumia Abu-Jamal, right? Just as we got Juneteenth to correct the racism of the 4th of July, because the 4th of July, 4 million of our ancestors were in bondage, North and South, right? 4th of July was used to fast track Mumia's death sentence, right? So for almost 39 years, I know almost a good 30 that I've been working on the case, easy, right? We shut down Philadelphia for Mumia Abu-Jamal. This particular Saturday at 2 o'clock at the municipal building at JFK Boulevard in Philadelphia, where we begin our rally and our march. We will also dedicate the rally to Consuela Africa. Now, who was Consuela Africa? Consuela Africa. What recently the horrible story broke about the remains of 2 MOVE daughters who were killed in the MOVE bombing, having been moved around between Princeton and University of Penn and several museums in a very horrific way, totally in disregard to how someone's remains are supposed to be taken care of, right? One of those was Consuela's daughter. Consuela was the mother. Right?
Wow.
The child's name was Tree Africa, right? Right? And when when that broke, we just got finished talking about, we ended the police this conversation talking about trauma. The trauma that took her out of here, man.
Yeah.
Took her out of here. Took her out of here. Consuela was the first one to get out of the MOVE 9, right? Out of the MOVE political prisons, right? So she has been out here for a while. She is the forerunner to Pam Africa. Pam Africa is the minister of confrontation, right? We know and love Pam to the utmost, right? But Pam stands on the shoulders of Consuela Africa, right? And Consuela, and Consuela, by virtue of having been through what she'd been through with that bid, had to, Pam had to step up, right? So we know and love Pam, but those are the shoulders that Pam stands on, right? So that afternoon is going to be dedicated to Mumia's freedom, right? The fight for Mumia's freedom, and to the life of Consuela Africa and all of the men, women, and children who were killed on the bombing of Move back on Friday the 13th, right? May 13th, 1985. We will never let anybody forget that.
Yeah. So what date is that?
Wow.
Tomorrow, July 3rd. It was July 3rd, 82.
Okay.
Right? Judge Sabo, may he rest in peace, said, look, just give us this Jamal guy, give us a death penalty. The appeal process will take forever. Don't worry about that. Don't you? You want to go home? This is Philadelphia. 4th of July is coming up. Stop. Just give it to us. And they did. That white jury had no problems, given that horrific prosecution that was in which everything that could have been done wrong was done wrong, right? And they gave them Mumia's head on the platter. We ain't gonna let nobody forget that till we get Mumia free.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ashe.
Are there other things that are going on with respect to that, right? Like, because I know that there are a lot of different things you were talking about. You were talking about this weekend. Is there more stuff that we need to know about?
Well, I'm not beyond this weekend, right? We're on the threshold of the anniversary of the Newark Rebellion, right? And for all of the good that we've got going on with the Newark police reform effort, there's also some real tensions and some real problems, right? We're getting a spate of some bad policing, right? That started with the New Year's Day police killing of Carl Dorsey, right? These undercovers that are just, defying, what they're supposed to be doing, and we're getting calls of folks are getting beat up, arrested, and the officers are saying to them that we're giving you this courtesy of Mayor Ras Baraka to deliberately undermine the reform effort, and their total disdain about, and that we believe that is being driven by the police union, right? So that's going to be raised up as we mark the anniversary of the rebellion. Usually we mark the anniversary of the rebellion, we talk about the victims of the rebellion, the life that was lost in the Newark Rebellion that a lot of people forget about. We often talk about the protests that emerged, the Black Power spurt of protest that emerged from the rebellion, but we also talk about the lives that were lost then. But here we have to also talk about that the very thing that we're fighting for, have been fighting for, triggered by police brutality back in 1967, is at a new crossroads, right? It's at a new crossroads, and the only way to move, and when you're at the crossroads, is forward, right? We cannot allow, a dimension within local police to defy this historical moment and then not be held accountable. So that's July 12th. Monday, July 12th at the memorial on Springfield Avenue, Springfield and 15th, over by the Social Security building. We'll be there at 5 o'clock when we do our annual rally in March to observe the anniversary of the epic Newark uprising.
And what you're saying is that this year, those commemorations are going to be really targeting the stuff that we talked about in the first hour, right?
Yes.
Like, as in.
Yes.
Like there
RCCRB bill, right?
Because I remember, and the governor better not sign that, like, I will destroy evidence and totally invalidate cameras in the vast majority of the ways that they're used. Like it's an egregious bill.
Our co-founder just joined us. I wish he was with us for that segment. He would have loved that segment because Ed's a lawyer.
But Ed is listening in. Ed, what did you think about that?
Yeah, man.
I think it was extremely hot, man. I think that a lot of information that she dropped, I had put something in the chat in regards to, when you think about what happened with George Floyd, the former cop who killed George Floyd, remember, he had his original police statement did not match at all with the video that the young sister had shot, right? But if he'd had an opportunity to look at that video before he wrote that statement, his statement would have, well, yeah, he would have made that statement match the video, right? He would have been able to justify that. And so I think that she was correct in terms of outlining, why that is a bad law if Murphy signs it, right? I think that we definitely need to be talking about how to put pressure on Murphy to make sure that bill never see the light of day.
Right on.
And I also think you're right. Zaid. I think we ought to punish the legislature for bringing that bill to the floor, right? And all of those who signed on to that bill ought to be punished.
Like, and what I said is that, like, they knew the science was bad, right? That's what we talked about earlier, right? Like, I think that the most compelling thing that they said is when you actually see the camera before you give your testimony, you actually destroy actual evidence, because how you remember is evidence. How they remembered what happened is evidence. And they're like, not only do you destroy that evidence that you will never be able to get back again, right? But that you actually taint the evidence that's left and you make it biased. I think her talking about the basis of the science behind it, the same science that was used in the original body cam legislation back in November of 2020, that they knew about, that they made a part of the legislation and that they ignored in this case, just makes it that much more egregious, because it's not like they didn't know. It's not like they didn't know. They knew better. They knew better. Like, and who was it that voted against it? There were only a handful of people who voted against it. Zayed, who voted against it?
Senator Ronald Rice, former combat military veteran from Vietnam, former police officer from Newark, New Jersey. Senator Ronald Rice, Senator Neil Gill, right, and Assemblywoman Brittany Timberlake.
But people also forget that Ronald Rice. But here's the other thing. Y'all forget that Ronald Rice is also an attorney. He's a lawyer as well.
Yes, sir. How about that? A good one.
Right. People forget that. So you got Neil Gill, who's an attorney, and you also got Ronald Rice, who's an attorney, right? So for them to vote against that bill, I think that they understand clearly the damage that would do to our community. And I think that that's something we ought to be talking about. As we talk the CRB bill, I think we need to talk about that. And I think that the governor needs to know clearly. John, heard you allude to the 94% that he got. I think that the governor ought to know that that community that gave him 94% of the vote definitely disagrees with this bill. And we need to let Assemblywoman know exactly how we feel about that.
That's right. Right on.
Yeah, so if he signs that bill, he's probably going to end up losing.
Huh?
Right, like he needed 94% of the black vote in order to win. If he signs that bill, he is potentially endangering his governorship, because that's just going to be, it's going to be emotionally so bad. It's because it's offensive. It's like getting spit on, right? It's that bad in terms of that bill, and I don't understand. Why? Like, I don't understand how it can be interpreted in any other way when the governor knows the science behind signing that bill means that the majority of people who are every day arrested, the everyday arrest where they can actually be incarcerated, where that is going to affect people in our community in a horrible way, and there's no way around it, right? He knows better.
Yeah, it's a serious bill. I think that someone to even consider something like that is absolutely outrageous. So I mean, when you think about that on face, I mean, what that could do to young men, who absolutely do nothing wrong, and these cops will get an opportunity to, well, we don't know, not to lie, but I mean, would actually lie based on a tape that they have. And remember, you know that the tape doesn't necessarily tell a full story because it depends on when you turn it on.
Right. And
So
that's part of what
if you turn it
but
on,
we
so if you turn it on after you hit me upside my head, or if you turn it on after you plant the gun, right? Or you turn it on after you shoot me, right? That's your story. That's the story you're gonna tell.
right.
But
well, welcome,
Jersey where it's after they bust you up, shoot you up.
Welcome, Congressman Payne.
Good evening. Good evening. How's everybody?
We're doing all right. We're doing all right, man.
Peace.
Happy to have you here.
Good to see you.
So what's going on, man?
Nothing, you know, just trying
Can
to
you
make
hear
it
us?
in trying to make it in this cold, hard world. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. We do.
We can hear you now. Yep.
Okay.
Hey, so, Congressman, you know, I was just looking at what was happening, man, with, you know, the vote that you all took as related to making, you know, D.C. the 52nd state, and I understand that there was some pushback from the Virginia senator.
Oh, really? I didn't see that.
Yeah, so, you know, I mean, but you know, all of y'all are obviously, and I heard that, you know, Nancy Pelosi, you know, she said that it was personal to her because of her dad, you know, in terms of getting this bill passed and making D.C. a 52nd state. I'm curious, what's the pushback? I mean, why are they fighting so hard on that? In all these years, and this was the second vote that you all took, but I'm saying, what's the pushback on that?
Well, you know, as we see the Republicans trying to minimize the impact that African Americans have through the voting process, this is another attempt to curtail that because they're concerned that majority of people in D.C.
Did we just lose him?
Oh, we just lost you, Congressman Payne. You just came out. So Ed, what you're talking about explain what you're talking about with the vote, like the Washington D.C. stuff.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, for the longest, you know, Washington D.C. been trying to become a state, and you know, that's been going on for years.
Hello?
And so, but
hello? Back? Yeah, he's back.
Oh, we've got you back. So you were.
We lost him again.
And we lost you. All right. So Ed, continue what you're saying.
Good.
Hello?
Yeah. So.
All right, back.
We got you, Congressman.
All right. I think we can hear you now. Congressman Payne?
Can't hear you, gentlemen.
You can't hear us?
We can hear you. You just can't hear us? Hello?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yes, sir.
We can hear you. We can hear you well.
Nod
there
your
are
head
two
if you
things.
can hear me.
We can hear you well.
Yeah.
When you look at your cam mic, there's like the whole setting thing that's on the bottom of your panel. You might look at the. Did he go out again? He went out again. All right.
He did.
Yes.
All right, Ed.
So, listen. You know, the thing is, John, is that, you know, why? I mean, I'm sure you know that DC is a predominantly black city, right? And Washington State. Oh, there he is. Congressman's back.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now, sir? We hear you fine.
We can hear you well. Can you hear us?
All right. Good. Yeah. So my point was that bottom line is they're trying to keep 700,000 plus people who've never had the opportunity to vote for president is taxation without representation, which was this whole country was built on. You know, that's what the Boston Tea Party was about. You know, and those type things. So here you have American citizens who are left out of the process, but have to pay taxes and what have you. So it's just fair that they finally get brought in to make, you know, decisions for themselves with respect to who's the chief executive officer of this country. So the Republican Party is just worried that even dampens efforts to curtail the vote in the African American community. So that's what that's about.
Too black, too strong.
That's right. That's right. Another sign of voter suppression, right? And you heard that this week that I don't even know if I've heard of Trump as a former president, but that cat, right? I think that you heard that when he was out there at the wall, Congressman, he announced that he's going to run re-election. Did you hear that?
I heard that. And
so
I mean, we just got to make sure we do what we did last time, and make sure that he doesn't get in, and hope people understand how important. Just think about your lives now, as opposed to 4 years ago. Isn't it quiet? Isn't it a little more peaceful? Isn't it like you don't hear them every single day? I mean, that's the piece I got out of it. So, I mean, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure he stays wherever he is.
Right. I mean, you're right. I think, but you know, one of the conversations I was having, though, Congressman Payne, with young people is that, you know, with in relation to Joe Biden, and obviously you and John had this conversation a couple of months back before the election took place. But one of the conversations I've been having with young people is that what's the barometer for them, and we mentioned this to you before, is that what's his hesitation on you know, siding with those two senators who are trying to get the student debt legislation passed in order to get the student debt relief that students need, because that's also going to end at some point in the near future. And so, you know, with them going to need those young people in the way that they got their input in Georgia in terms of getting those two senators, they're going to need young people again, along with all of the black folks who voted for them. They're going to need that in order to push back, because I think that all of those racist white folks who attacked the Capitol, I mean, those people are still emboldened, because some of them, or if not the majority of all of them, still really believe that Donald Trump, and because they still promoting the lie that Donald Trump actually won the election.
Yeah, well, you know, there's a bunch of people that believe in fairies too. So, I mean, you know, in terms of that, they can think what they want to think. But every day I turn on the TV, I see Joe Biden speaking as president. And until that changes, hey, let them think what they want to think. The reality is Joseph Biden is president.
One thing I noticed is that it seems like there are a lot of states that financially they have surpluses, or they are there's money, right? Like, do you think that if Biden were not elected, that we would be facing budget shortfalls in like New York and New Jersey? We'd have to do a lot more layoffs in education in the public sector. Do you, like, when you talked about peace, or at least it doesn't seem like as like rancorous in DC as it was before. Is that something that you were talking about?
Absolutely. It's regular order. I mean, you know, we're doing things for the American people. I mean, you know, I wanted to talk tonight about the child tax credit incentives, you know, for Americans. And, you know, that was in the rescue plan of something that the Congressional Black Caucus fought for very rigorously. And, you know, it is going to help a lot of low income families. So if you have a child under 6 years old, you're eligible for a $300 a monthly payment. That amounts to $3,600 every year. And if you have a child between 6 and 17 years old, you're eligible for $250 monthly payments. And, that's $3,000 every year. But people must file, a federal tax return so the IRS knows that you're eligible.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you do not pay taxes, you must file a return or sign up for the IRS non-filer tool to be eligible to get a check. And the payment starts July 15th. So, y'all need to sign up.
I didn't know that there was a such thing. Yeah, you just took us to school on something. Now, there's a non-filing tool that some folks can use to qualify for that?
Absolutely. The IRS has a non-filer tool that'll help you be eligible and get the check.
Wow. Okay. That's wow. Yeah.
It applies to families that earn up to $150,000 for 2-parent households and $112,000 for single-parent households.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that takes in a lot of our folks.
It sure does.
And almost
sure
90% of American children will benefit from the expanded child tax credit. So these are the types of things that when you want to get down and talk about Democrats and Republicans, you've got a Democratic House, you've got a Republican Senate, you've got a Democratic president. And we're talking about giving families $3,600 a month that could potentially pull them out of poverty.
That's right. Yes, it can.
It will cut child poverty in American families by 52% and Latino families by 45%.
And this was already passed.
Yeah, each dollar. Yeah, we're trying to get people to take it.
Each dollar, money is on the table.
Each dollar invested in the child tax credit creates up to $1.50 in local economic spending and $8 in overall economic benefit. So that means people have more disposable income, which means they'll spend more, which means stores make more, which means they need to hire more people, and it's just a chain reaction.
So make this plain for us, Congressman. Right? Is this something that someone has to apply for? Is it different from the stimulus checks where folks who automatically qualified got them, or do you have to apply for this in order to get it?
So you have to, as I stated, you have to file with the IRS so they know that you are eligible for the checks.
Wow. I don't understand it that way. That's
and, children and families who get the credit do better in school and are more likely to attend and graduate college and earn more money as adults.
Indeed.
Tax credit will benefit 84% in my district. Will benefit 84% of the children in New Jersey if they all apply for it. And eligible district families will receive $7 a year this year.
And how much did you say per month is, Congressman?
If children under 6 is $300 a month, and children between 6 and 17 is $250 a month.
Okay.
So you're basically saying that right now we're leaving money on the table, that there's money that was passed that exists that people have not been applying for, and you're just like, hey, let's spread the word that you can actually apply for a child income tax credit, even if you didn't pay tax, even if you were not eligible to pay taxes, you could actually receive that credit. You just need to apply to the IRS.
Right. That's who it's for. That's what it's for.
Now, how do they apply? What do they do in order to do that?
Just go to childtaxcredit.gov. It's a website,
Wow.
childtaxcredit.gov.
So childtaxcredit.gov, and if you go to childtaxcredit.gov, then people making even over 100,000 with kids can actually have extra income to be able to help their children.
That's right. Two family, $150,000 qualifies, and a single parent family making $112,000 can apply.
Wow.
And is that money that they get immediately once they apply, Congressman?
July 15th, sir.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Oh, wow. So really, it's you're like, hey, there's money that you could get in the next 2 weeks. And you
Right.
need to apply for it now because it actually was created so that you could start getting it now.
Did I stutter?
Like July 15th, like less than 2 weeks. That's like, so you come up with this good news. This is like, you're just been like, look, today I'm going to come on and I'm going to tell you that the United States federal government is trying to give you money that you are not.
I just put it in the chat.
Well,
Wow.
we've been giving you money because you got those stimulus checks. We've been
Right.
giving
True.
you money.
So you're like, look, if you're like, wait, there's no difference between Republicans and Democrats, look at the stimulus check. You still think there's no difference, then look at the money that we are trying to give you that definitely would not have happened without a Democratic Senate, even as thin a majority as it is.
Look at the difference. Look at the difference between when the House of Representatives was under Republican leadership and since it's been under Democratic.
That's true.
Everything coming out of the pandemic was with a Democratic House of Representatives. And then now you have what the holdback, the setback would have been a president that wouldn't sign these bills. But we have somebody in the White House that is aligned with us. And if we can get it through the Senate, then it will go to his desk and he will sign it. I mean,
Wow.
look how quickly we the Juneteenth holiday came. They signed it on Thursday the 16th, no, Thursday the 17th, and it was that Saturday, Juneteenth. So, I mean, people need to start separating, keeping it real and who's doing what and who's not doing what under who.
I think part of the real piece too, which is the difference is that we've got Schumer as opposed to Mitch McConnell, right? Because Mitch McConnell was busy blocking everything. So I think that's a big piece too, right? Just in terms of having, you guys control the House, and then of course,
too.
Right, and us having the majority with the president in the Senate,
Right.
But Congressman, let's talk about that. What's the holdup with getting rid of this filibuster, man? What's that all about, man?
You gotta talk to Joe Manchin. I don't know. He just is adamant about keeping the filibuster. I don't know why.
Because it seemed to be saying is if we can get rid of the filibuster, it seems like we can get all of the civil rights bills passed. We can do some work on the voting rights bills, right? But it seemed to be I don't think anyone disagrees that the filibuster has been used for racist perspective. I don't think anyone disagrees with that.
Right.
And so it would seem to me that President Biden needs to go all in while you all are controlling the Senate and the House at this point to try to get this thing done.
Right, but Biden doesn't have any say in that. That's the legislative branch. So he can make a comment about it, but he has no power or authority with respect to those rules. Those are rules of the Senate. The House, we can't. All we can do is say that we don't like it. We don't have any say over that either. So you just got to get the Senate. You got to get the senators to agree on that. And it's a double-edged sword too, because it could come back to haunt you. Say we're out of power, and they come up with something that could really hurt us. It'd be good to have that filibuster.
But one of the things that I was thinking about is that it's really not as a double-edged sword for us, in that there really is effectively white minority rule in the United States, given that the number of states that have 2 senators that are in mostly like all white states and without numbers, right? One of the reasons why I thought DC should be a state and make Puerto Rico a state is that you're actually trying to balance what is right now a democratic imbalance. The filibuster right now empowers white minority states far, far more than us, because in order for them to do that, they have to have the presidency, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. That doesn't happen often, and when it does happen, they do what they want to do anyway, right? Like when they own all 3 branches, then it's like, duck, there's not a lot you can do, right?
Yeah, but therein lies the filibuster. That would be the way to slow them down and to stop them. So that's why I said it's a double-edged sword, because just as it works for them, it can work for us.
But I think that it works for us less in that we are not overrepresented, right? Like, we do actually have, in a way, a type of white minority rule, given all of the small, like predominantly white states that have 2 representatives, and California has 2 representatives. It's kind of like when they were doing the figures, they were like, California has 2 representatives, and you deal with the other. There are like 30 states that you have to go to like 30 states in order to get that same population.
Yeah, you're breaking up. I couldn't hear you at all.
Oh, can you hear me now? Is it?
Yeah.
It was just like, based on the composition of the Senate, you have a large number of.
I don't know what's happening.
All right,
John, breaking up.
It's a conspiracy. Zai, can you hear me? Am I breaking up to you as well?
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Ed, am I breaking up to you too? Okay.
It must be my.
All right. So,
must be my.
Okay, so.
No, John.
Can you?
I can hear the congressman as well, but I think that we might be breaking up when we're talking to him.
Okay. So, Congressman, can you hear us now?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's kind of like right now we have a situation in the United States where we effectively, based in the Senate, have a like white minority rule, right? Like there are a lot of small population, like predominantly like 90% white states that control so many different senators, whereas California, New York, we get 2. And when you're looking at the filibuster, especially with the Senate, it disadvantages us far, far, far more than it disadvantages Republicans, because we are starting at a disadvantage, right? Like, yes, will they be able to do certain things if they get the majority? Yes, but you're giving like a white minority veto power over the rest of us. I believe we have lost the congressman again, but he is coming. Yeah, so it's almost like we give them veto power in a disproportionate way. You have a minority of the population with the filibuster that can make it impossible to pass any legislation. And I think that based on the composition of the Senate, it becomes egregious, right? Like, because you have so many states that are small population, they have 2 senators, they literally are able to stop an overwhelming majority of the United States. Well, we can't do that, right?
No, we can
stop the
do.
majority.
Why can't we? Wait a minute. Why can't we do that?
Because we would never be stopping a majority, right? Like, if we would be stopping a minority.
No, us, the original minority can be stopping the majority.
No, I mean, like, as in just numbers, right? Like, the Republicans are in a lot of small states that have small populations, but they have 2 senators.
Right.
So you have like 5 white people, let's say, example, right? And you have Wyoming, you have Idaho, you have all these other states that are stopping numerically better represented population.
But it comes down to one man, one vote, and just like I understand what you're saying, John, but at the end of the day, those populations, and it was kind of built that way to kind of even it out, basically with what they were doing back in the day when they created this. So I hear what you're saying, but I beg to differ. The tool can be used by any senator. That means Booker. That means any of them. And so that's the great equalizer. It can be used by minority senators. But I understand what you're saying, John. I get it. But those are the rules right now.
But what I'm saying is that when the Senate was actually created, right, that already, right, was supposed to protect small states, right? So just their numbers, even if there was no filibuster, they would still be overrepresented in the Senate. Wyoming is overrepresented. Idaho is overrepresented. That's what the founders built so that these small states wouldn't get ignored. The filibuster is not part of the Constitution. It is a Senate rule. And it's one that disproportionately...
I never said it was part of the Constitution. No, I never said it was part of the Constitution. I said it's a rule.
No, I agree with you. Like, we agree on that. I'm just saying that it's a rule that gives these small white states even more power than they were supposed to have in the Constitution. They already have outsized power. The filibuster rule gives them even more outsized power, right? Like, Booker represents more people than the senator from Wyoming. So Booker's already it's not one person, one vote, because it's the Senate. Like, that's what makes these Senate rules so horrible in terms of the filibuster, because it takes like what was constitutional, and that we have to give these small states overrepresentation. It gives them hyper overrepresentation that we will never have. Booker will never have the number of votes behind, like the lack of votes behind them that they do in Idaho. Idaho, they represent 30 people, but yet they have the same power as Cory Booker. Same with California. And that's cool in terms of the original Constitution, etc. But the filibuster takes what gives these white states natural power and constitutional power and overrepresentation, hyper overrepresentation, far more than ever was imagined by the founders.
All right. So, John, this is not the Supreme Court here, brother. All right. You're not arguing in front of the Supreme Court. This ain't the state championships of debate. All right. This is the Payne report. All right. Children, I hope you were listening. Children, I hope you were listening.
Hey, man, I'm just trying to give out the arguments that you will use, and people. If I can throw it out there and it can help, then man, I'm just gonna try. I'm just gonna try.
All right.
So, and I hope those are good arguments. A lot of people are making these arguments.
I still beg to differ with you. It is a tool that they're using right now that at some point in time could benefit us. I mean, a few years ago, Booker went to the floor with something, and it was I can't remember what it was, but there have been a few occasions. I think even Obama at one time used a filibuster on something. But I'm not saying that I'm wedded to it. I'm just saying that I feel it's a double-edged sword, and where you take it away, and then when we find ourselves jammed up, with some of this stuff, when it comes to this voting rights, I mean, we might want to use the filibuster. So that's all I'm saying. But I hear your point. Point well made.
So John, do you think we should keep it?
I'm sorry, you said what?
So I asked John, do you think we should keep the filibuster or get rid of it?
Oh, he wants to get rid of it.
I think that, get rid of the filibuster, because like I just pulled up this article that says how the Senate gives Wyoming 70 times more clout than California. Wyoming gets 70 times more clout, 70 times more clout than California. And what that means is that the senator from Wyoming is like hypercharged 70, where a person like the senator from California is like only a little bit, right? The filibuster just explodes that, because that's just talking about regular representation, right? Like the 70 times more power is in what the Constitution just provides. The filibuster hypercharges that, because it's like you have like 30 people in Wyoming who can destroy things for millions of people in California and New York.
But why? The tool is available to us as well.
But it just has. It's kind of like when Jesse Jackson was like, when he had this example, right? He was like, the chicken and the pig, and he was like, let's contribute equally to breakfast. The chicken will give eggs, and the pig will give ham. And Jesse Jackson always used that, and that pig was like, no, that actually affects me more. Like I gotta die to make some ham, whereas you just got to give some eggs, to make some eggs and ham, right? The pig gives a lot more. It seems like it's equal, but it's not. Like it seems like we can use it in an equal way, but we can't use it in an equal way because we represent a lot more people. So you have a small number of white people who can dog the majority of the country because of the outsized power. And they could do that normally with the Senate, but with the filibuster, it hypercharges that. So instead of Wyoming have 70 times more power than California, it's even exponentially more than that, because you need like 60 votes to pass any legislation, like anything. I'd rather give the Republicans, if they get the House, the Senate, and the president, they were able to pass tax reform. They're able to push back, Republicans in the Supreme Court. They're already able to exercise power in the areas where Republicans want to exercise power. That's why, like Obama wasn't able to have a Supreme Court justice, because it was like, we have this exacerbated power, but they were still able to get all of their justices, right? I mean, all of their judges, and the filibuster didn't help us with that. So even with the issues that are important to Democrats and the issues that are important to Republicans, already, because the filibuster isn't used in those ways in terms of those judicial hearings, they already have more power in the areas where they want more power. It's only us who get like civil rights legislation. Why can't the civil rights legislation be filibuster free, just like the courts are, right? In terms of getting the justices that you would particularly need, right? So they're able to stop us, right? But we can't really stop them on the issues that they want, because the Senate was already sly enough to be like, well, on these issues that are important to us, filibuster won't count. So in addition to the outsized political power, right, that they have just from numbers,
John.
Yes.
Take a breath. Take a breath. All right. You're right now. What you're doing is filibustering. So stop. Okay.
Fair.
So you're using something that you're totally against. Okay.
Well, I'm not from a white minority state, so it's a little different. But no, I definitely appreciate it.
But, all right.
Fair
What
enough.
else? That's enough. Yeah.
Hey, so Congressman, let me ask you this, right? In the time we got left, did you get an opportunity to see the BET Hip Awards?
The who?
The BET Hip Hop Awards?
No, I didn't see that.
Okay, because is Rhino still around, John? Because one of the things I wanted to ask him with the congressman on was, as he was talking about, the type of rap that is being promoted more and more favored in terms of winning awards, seem to be this hip hop where black women are basically strippers now, right? And so that Cardi B and those other rappers now, that seems to be what's being promoted, right? So this whole image of the type of sisters like Queen Latifah back in the day, who of course won a Lifetime Achievement Award, but what he was saying is that that type of music is being more favored, and my issue is that is a political issue, right? Because Rhino, yeah. So Rhino, I'm trying to pick up on what you were saying earlier, Congressman, because you were talking about what we need to be doing in order to change this whole paradigm with one type of hip hop in terms of women, particularly black women, as it relates to this stripper concept, right? With Cardi B and other rappers like her. And what I'm trying to get the congressman input is that seems to be more of a political issue, because if these companies are not seeing the Queen Latifahs of the world, or those young rappers saying something positive, because you were talking about how they had Congressman Waters come behind some sort of raunchy song or something, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, they had Queen Maxine Waters come out and introduce Jasmine Sullivan and her artists, and she said something real. It was like a one-liner. It was real quick. She said something real powerful in the beginning, and it was to open up and introduce Jasmine Sullivan. And Jasmine Sullivan comes out on stage, but then Jasmine Sullivan comes out on stage. She does one song, but then she goes into another song where she introduces Ari Lennox, who is one of the new singers of the day. And they do a song where they're talking about sit on it, spit on it, and all this stuff. And it was extremely inappropriate for something to have Maxine Waters, I felt at least, to have Maxine Waters open up in the beginning. When they had another choice, there was another choice that she has on her album with her, where they could have performed that. Right. Where they're speaking on how a lot of the whole stripper thing, how these girls are winning, and we're real women and something needs to change. They could have did that song with Maxine Waters introducing them like that, and they did something raunchy. So, but what I was going to say to what Ed was saying is that for a while now, since early '90s, it's been a political thing where we've had all the consciousness that we had in hip hop music between 1988 and 1992, that 5-year span, we had conscious music. We had Public Enemy. I'm not even going down. Y'all know, right? But then at the end of '92, going into '93, we get The Chronic from Dr. Dre, and that was right in the midst of Public Enemy, Sister Soldier, and Ice Cube's conversion over to conscious music. And then we get The Chronic, and then everything else from the West Coast. West Coast took over from that point. And we got all kinds of the raunchy hip hop, what they called it, what they labeled the gangster rap. Right. But then, you know, and then after that, you know, it's all been political to me in my view. It's all been political. They don't want the consciousness. Of course, they don't want us. It's just like in politics when they don't want you to vote for certain reasons. They don't want you to do certain things for certain reasons. It's obvious, you know what I'm saying? And it's the same thing in hip hop. It's obvious. The agenda is obvious all of the way around.
Right.
We need to, and what I was saying earlier also about our culture, and we can do that with our politics as well, is we need to be the gatekeepers of our politics, of our culture. You know what I'm saying? We need to be the gatekeepers, because as long as somebody else behind us is controlling it, you know, it's always going to be what it is. It's the narrative is always going to be controlled by somebody else, and we're just going to be the pawns. We're just going to be the poster boys for all of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I to be honest, you know, when y'all ask me who am I listening to lately, you know, I just go back to the good old days, like you're talking about, because I must be getting old, man, because I you know, for the life of me, I don't know. And it ain't nothing like, you know, that's so Maxine Waters has to come on before somebody's spitting on. Oh man, that's just
and that was heartbreaking, because it was good to see Maxine Waters just in the audience. I didn't even know they were going to have her on stage. I saw her in the audience prior to that, and I was just glad that she was there. But then when I saw that she had a part in, you know, bringing on Jasmine Sullivan, I was like, that's dope. That's dope. Because I know Jasmine Sullivan is a great singer. She's a powerful sister. Her album actually is called Hotels, but it actually has a positive message for women to really listen to, and for men to really listen to and get into. And it's an intimate subject, but it's real and it's necessary for people to hear. But the song, that one song that she did off of that album, just seemed like it was inappropriate for that time, or at least Maxine Waters, you know, connected to it. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was, and honestly, it was really a theme that just went throughout the whole award show. That was a little disappointing. Also, it was just because the theme of the show was supposed to be, and they said it. The theme of the award show was supposed to be the year of the Black woman. It's supposed to be the year of the Black woman, but all we saw throughout the whole show was stripper rap, thought rap, and, you know, the inappropriate stuff. And I just feel, I mean, you know, I'm not a woman, I'm not a Black woman, I'm a Black man, but from a Black man, I just feel like, wow, that's you know, that's what we have to offer.
Hey, you're doing what a Black man should do, brother. You're doing exactly what a Black man should do. Speak out about it, and we're supposed to protect them.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, though, Congressman. They use Auntie Maxine for that, right? You know, for her, with her credibility, right, in terms of what she means to Black folks, period. You know what I mean? There's something like, that's why I'm saying you got to look at the political connotations to that in terms of having her there, and then for her to come behind some filth like that, right? And then for them to, you know, when Rhino talks about the theme, right? For that whole theme and call it the year of the woman, well, wait a minute. If you see the year of the woman and you look at how high Maxine, Auntie Maxine Waters is, and then you take us that low as I forget the brother name. He's a motivational speaker, Les Brown. He talks about all the time taking it higher, right? Instead of taking it higher, Payne, they took that shit lower, and they used her to do it.
And that's what I felt about the show, because, like I said, it was supposed to be the theme of the Black woman, and, you know, it was coded with Black excellence. It was coded as Black excellence, but I felt like when you really looked at the show, you really see a lot of underlying issues that we have to address within ourselves. You know what I'm saying? And that's just what I got from it, though.
No, I'm glad you brought
the moment with the tribute with Sister Queen Latifah was beautiful. I loved it. The moment, the tribute to Brother DMX was beautiful. I loved it. A couple of the performances I love, but the theme was it was like mixed messages. On top, they're saying it's the theme of the black woman, but below it was a whole lot of something else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that was the issue that I had.
No, that's unfortunate. And you know, when I see her next week, I'm gonna just ask her, you know, how she felt about it.
Yeah, because what I also wondered too was did Sister Maxine Waters even know what was coming after? You know what I'm saying?
They wouldn't
not even known what was coming after that.
Nah, they wouldn't have told her. They don't normally tell us, you know, in those situations, you know, what we're following. They just give us our piece.
Yeah.
And we do that. And so no, that's like, really unfortunate.
Yeah.
And that's the point I'm making, right?
Her, you know, like I said, she had like a one or two liner or whatever. Her piece was beautiful. You know, Maxine Waters always shows out. It was, like I said, it was beautiful. It was real good to see her there. You know what I mean? But it was a little embarrassing too, though. You know what I mean? Because some of the stuff that was going on.
Right.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And that's the point I'm making, Congressman. Right. So for her to be that strong, and the way she stood up Trump over that whole 4-year period, and then for this, you know, for that to be done, what the political connotations are, you know, to black women. In terms of that, remember, it's one strong year for black women, right? You know, rallying people to vote, all the work that they did in terms of getting those two senators elected, in terms of what they did to get Joe Biden elected, in terms of what they did to get Vice President Harris elected. So it was the year of the black woman. But now, if all of a sudden you're gonna promote this theme to particularly the young people who were watching the hip hop awards that night, what are you saying about black women? And then you use Auntie Maxine Waters to help promote that kind of bullshit.
Yeah. For some reason, I don't know why we find that enjoyable, you know, talking about our sisters and our women like that. And you know, just really disappointing when you have an opportunity. But I mean, you know, people that look like us aren't at the top of that food chain, you know, choosing what they're gonna do, you know.
Exactly, and that goes back to what I was saying before as being the gatekeepers, like who's really controlling what's going on, who's really behind this narrative that we see. You know what I mean? It ain't just us.
It ain't us. No.
Right.
At the end of the day, it ain't us making the final decision. That's for sure.
Right.
I mean, you're absolutely right. But part of that too, Congressman Payne, has got to be people, right? Because there's no way in hell, Congressman, if I ask you to come speak at a hip hop event and somebody don't tell me who's gonna follow you, and I think that's gonna be, you know, detrimental to your character and to what you've been promoting all year and all 4 years. You know, I you know, there's issues with that, right? Because I wouldn't want my congressman, you know, who don't believe in no negative stuff like that, who don't believe in raunchy crap like that. No, I mean, that's a problem for me.
Well, I appreciate that. And, you know, I appreciate your little support down there on Broad Street that day when me and Mr. Muhammad ran up against one.
But
hey, Mr. Hey,
what was that about?
Zaid, what did it say? Listen, don't argue with a fool, because from a distance nobody can tell which one is the fool.
That
was a mess.
But what I said about that though, Congressman, and Zaid know this is true. But listen, you know, I think you sort of forgot where you from though, Congressman. I think you got that kind of twisted, right? Because I think
I can't.
That's right.
I mean, you know, I feel like that sometimes, but there's no way I can act like I used to, you know, before my father went to Congress. I gave up all my vices when he went to Congress. So, you know, I couldn't. That was just a bad scene, and you know, he's been around, and he needs some help, you know, He's got some issues that he needs to deal with, and I've told him that before. And the funny thing is, he's an immigrant, right? My father helped his family come here.
Wow. Everybody's got a story about this.
Wow.
And his mother and his
he going out, ain't nobody trying to help him. No, please.
No, my father got his family here.
Wow.
From Liberia.
Wow. Didn't know that, guys.
Wow.
Did you know that, Ty?
No. That's another
Didn't
one.
know that, guys.
See?
I know something. I was wishing that day that he hadn't been successful.
I don't need a whole lot to be wishing that right now, brother.
Let me be a principal.
It goes with the job. It goes with the job.
Yeah,
it goes with the
I should be
job.
principled about that and say that I should not have let that young brother upset me the way he did. But he did.
He did. Oh, he's good at it.
Yeah. But more to the thing that's most important about that is that I hope he doesn't get in the way of some folks who really need some help. Because
Right.
I tried to connect. I have actually connected with the lawyer of the family of these young brothers who had this bad run-in with the police. But that is, and he is just totally.
Yeah, there's no rhyme or
warriors, y'all got work to do.
There's no rhyme or reason why he attaches himself to certain issues, and I wouldn't be surprised if them folks didn't even know who he was or that he was doing that. Mm-hmm. He's sometimes he's in his own private Idaho, as I say.
Yeah, we might. But I would say we might have even spent too much time even talking about that, because one of the things I always advise people to do is never hit down, and that's maybe they don't belong in the same conversation. So maybe we spend too much time on that as it is.
Right.
Oh yeah,
I agree.
You didn't say that about the filibuster. Oh, I see. When it's your deal, we can spend as much time as you may consume, huh?
I'm trying to filibuster the filibuster, right? As a debate coach, I always try to give the best iteration of the argument and throw it out there, and hopefully it makes a difference to somebody.
The John Austin report.
You better
not at all. No, I appreciate that. I Congressman, I appreciate you listening. Right, I appreciate you listening.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Now it makes a valid point.
Well, listen, man.
Yep.
Y'all know
so we are
at the end of the
Payne report. Yeah, gonna wrap up a good session.
And,
Child tax credit. Child tax credit.
Yes.
July 15th. Childtaxcredit.com.
Sonny just put it up. Mike should be running it.
Childtaxcredit.com.
And John, you should have had it rolling across the front, man. So folks could have seen it as well. You know what I mean? Because Zaid put it in the chat.
Fair enough. We should actually put it on our comments as well, so that people, if they look at the comments, they could actually get it. So everything that's on our chat, we should make sure we put in our comments as well to throw those things out there.
Because
it's gonna be. I mean, just think about another $3,500 in a family's pocket. What that could mean, in terms of eating and education and everything. And that's times each child. That's times each child.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah,
and you said childtaxcredit.com. Stay updated, get answers on payments. And I just want to put that up here right now so that people can see it, so that they have an idea of what we are talking about in terms of child tax credit. Is this the website? Congressman, is this the website?
It looks like it. Yes, sir.
Get answers and stay updated. Payments start on July 15th, 2021. Sign up for email updates about the child tax credit, and we'll help you get the most out of it. All right, this is a great website to go on, and I think that this is
a great way to end the night. Very practical way to end the night.
Well, I'm glad we spent some time on the Congressman thing, because as you said, that would definitely be helpful to our folks, man.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. And I'm going to be doing a few other events around that over the next week or two. So
good.
Getting the word out. Gotta let people know.
All right.
Yeah. Hey, guys, we definitely to post that on the Facebook page too, man. It definitely.
Yeah. I'll put it up right after the show.
Okay, cool. All right.
All right.
Hey, thank you, my brother. Appreciate you coming through to do your show, brother.
All right, good to see y'all. I miss Donna.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
We all do.
All right.
Yes, good seeing you. This is a good night. You know, thank the ACLU came on. Everyone we had some good conversations. So until next week.
Take care.
Congressman Payne.